Opening his eyes, the protagonist found himself in a child's body, making soft, cute noises, and felt he had been reborn again. At first he asked them to wait, then decided he must be Lex, a boy born into an ordinary rural family. People probably wondered how a child could speak so arrogantly. He is reincarnated, which means he has been reborn. In his previous world, Lex was a hero who defeated both enemies and demons with the strongest sword of his time, and remained immortal because he had been reborn, just like now. Because he had been reborn, he said it again. In his previous life, he had been a sage who could use any kind of magic, but he did not know why people had started calling him that. Despite receiving praise as both a sage and a hero, he always faced a variety of problems. In other words, he will now live a peaceful, ordinary life in this world. His coveted titles like sage and hero are gone. All this has happened. It will not weigh on his conscience, and he will be able to enjoy this life. This is what people call a symbol of freedom. He will live quietly and become an adventurer. 15 years later, the main character became a cute, smiling teenager who always carried a sword. In this world, people are adults at 15 and leave their parents to find a job. The main character told his parents he wanted to be an adventurer, and they did not stand in his way. Dad called him by name and said it was his life and he could do whatever he wanted. Mom told him to take good care of himself. If something bad happened, they would always be glad to have him here. Embarrassed by his words, the main character was pleased at first, then clenched his fists and said he was leaving. His family shouted that he was the best Paco and told him to be careful, all with warm smiles. Lex turned, waved, thanked them, and said he was leaving. At last, the main character could live freely, clenched his right hand into a fist, raised it, and said it was time to become an adventurer. Walking through the forest, he thought even the nearest town, Tugai, was a bit far away. It would probably take him about half a day to walk there. After spending the whole morning at the coming-of-age ceremony, he feels a bit late and wants to complete his adventurer registration as soon as possible. At that moment, he lifted his leg and said he needed to hurry, then decided to use magic on his legs to move faster. He took off, sure he could fly without limits, and climbed high into the sky. After that, he looked around to figure out which way to fly and saw the city for himself. The main character decided to use teleportation magic, but something still confused him. Suddenly, he decided to go hunting. Adventurers are expected to hunt monsters. From above, he saw a dragon and realized it was a plain green dragon. So if he wanted to live in peace, this should be his goal. Drawing on the sword and knowledge from his past life, he used a blade infused with vast, eternal magic, making the green dragon an easy target. The main character raised his sword with resolve and smiled. He said he had to kill the dragon quickly. Lex sped up and flew straight at the dragon, thinking he could kill him in one blow. Flying closer, he saw something was wrong and that the dragon was watching for someone. The main character decided it didn't matter and moved toward him, crying out loudly. The other suddenly turned toward him. With a powerful swing, Lex cut off the dragon's head as if it cost him no effort, and he thought it was magnificent before taking out a magic bag. He opened the magic bag he made himself and said it was time to collect the loot. The bag looked ordinary, but its interior was magically expanded so anything fit perfectly, and thinking of how precious the dragon was, he loaded its body into his bag. He said everything was fine and finished, then had to leave before dark, used magic again to fly into the sky, and had to register as an adventurer quickly. At that spot, he heard some rustling. Looking toward it, he wondered if he had imagined the sound or really heard something. At that moment, the stranger realized they had been attacked by a monster, and worse, it was a green dragon that even the best royal troops could not defeat. This means the word strongest by itself cannot describe this terrible monster. At night, it became clear the dragons were targeting their horses. They must use the horses and then run away. The man turned to the others and told them to retreat first, knowing they could not afford to lose a single horse in a place like this. But that was their only way to survive. Apologizing to Vulcan, the knight vowed not to let him die alone and offered his own life as the main character flew at the dragon. Shocked, the man watched as the young man easily defeated the green dragon they had been so afraid of. The main character ignored them and simply said, "It was excellent." The man and the horse watched in shock. By the time he realized, it was already over. Right in front of him, the teenager pulled out a small bag that swallowed everything. even the dragon's giant body inside it. A strange scene lay before him, and he could only think it was some kind of magical object. The man stayed in shock and denied it, unable to accept that a teenager could own a magical object. Just as the knight turned to the main character to ask a few questions, he suddenly flew away. The man tried to stop him with words, but the knight ignored him. The knight could hardly believe his eyes. It all happened in a blink. The bag swallowed the dragon, and everyone trembled with fear. It ended quickly. The dragon split in two in an instant, but the man remembered the princess, and panic crossed his face. One of the knights said not to worry about the princess, saying that although she was unconscious, she was safe, and the man exhaled, calling it a great job. Leo is relieved the princess is safe, but his heart is heavy. The fight with the dragon nearly pushed his frail body to the brink. The man said he didn't know what was happening, but they survived by turning to his horse. The knight refused to forget. He tried to understand who the young man was. The protagonist finally reached the city of Tugai and believed he could still register as an adventurer. After a while, he walked the city's streets, passing crowds of people chatting as he looked for the Adventurers Guild. He almost immediately found the right building and went inside. Several people were there, divided into groups. The room buzzed with people talking, and the main character was delighted because he thought they were all adventurers. It was amazing. He had not imagined there would be so many adventures here, and he felt a little worried. Stopping himself abruptly, he realized he had almost forgotten his main goal and needed to go to the reception desk as soon as possible. After looking around, the main character thought he had found the place, but a very long line stood in front of him. One of the men in front of him turned and asked whether this was really the first time he had been here at this hour. Lex was terrified by those words. He stuttered that it was his first day, and the man smiled and said he was a newbie. The stranger asked whether he had brought anything on his first mission, and whether he had come to register as an adventurer, and he said yes. The kind man said everyone had finished work. People came to report the mission was complete, so he does not think many people like him will register. The man asked the protagonist where he was from, and the protagonist said he came from the village of Zengi. The man said he had never heard of the village, or where it was, and Lex explained that to reach it, he would first have to cross the mountain west of the city. He was surprised. The main character was so eager to become an adventurer that he talked about it easily and said he knew a shortcut that let him get here quickly. Smiling sweetly, the main character said it looked like no one was ahead, and the man replied he'd go then. The girl told the next person to come to her, greeted Lex, introduced herself as Elma, said she was a registrar, and then asked whether he really wanted to register as an adventurer. The main character gave a firm yes, then asked how she found out, and the girl said he had talked to Garand himself and sounded very excited. Elma suggested registering Kaim, asked if he could read and write, and offered to help if he could not, but he said he could do everything himself. The protagonist realized that after all he had been a sage in his past life. She handed him a questionnaire and said he needed to fill it out. After receiving the questionnaire, Lex filled in every field and then handed the completed form to the girl. Elma smiled and said she would check his information again, then added that he had beautiful handwriting. After praising his handwriting a few more times, she said they were also recruiting people with beautiful handwriting. Lex was surprised. He clenched his fist and insisted he needed to be recorded as an adventurer, and the girl smiled, said she understood, but suggested he think about it after he retired. Elma said calmly that a practical exam would be arranged for him after this. A man stepped forward and draped his arm over the main character's shoulder, saying the fight had been real but was only a test to see if he had what it takes to be an adventurer. Lex turned to the man and thought he was acting like the coolest guy in the building. The man looked very strong and asked Elma if he could oversee his exam. The girl froze at his words, asked him to repeat them, and then stressed that he was an A-rank adventurer. The man winked and said Lex was probably a promising adventurer to register at that hour, so he wanted to instruct him as a candidate. The man leaned toward the girl and whispered why he had decided to do it. Elma sighed and said she was very sorry, but his exam would not be with a guild employee. It would be with Org-san. The girl said he could be out of his mind at times, but as an A-rank adventurer, he could give him better advice than the guild members. Bowing to the man, the main character asked him to look after him, and the man smiled and said he admired his diligence and was still the same old man. At that moment, the crowd said they would finish buying materials for the day. the protagonist, felt he had to deal with the dragon. The man asked whether he really wanted to sell anything. Lex said he needed money for his room and food and planned to sell the materials from the monster he was hunting, but he had none. The man laughed and said he had to go to Elma because others would inspect his goods while he took the exam. The protagonist turned to him and thanked him, relieved that org. Song was so understanding, and then began to take out his magic bag. He laid the dragon's remains before him and asked to be judged. At that moment, everyone in the guild froze in shock. The protagonist said the dragon was a little too big, so he would put it on the floor. His prey took up almost half of the guild's space. Smiling, Lex asked everyone to buy this green dragon as he pointed to it. The main character then approached Org-san, apologized for keeping him waiting, and said he was ready for his test, but Org-san stopped him with a raised hand. Org-san asked him if he was really hunting for this, and the main character said he had done it on the way here. The man asked if anyone had helped him, and he replied no. Then the man asked if he had a method of his own, and he said he had cut off his head with one blow. Org-san said that when he looked at the dragon, its wings were strong. Lex explained it was a green dragon, and the man agreed it was not a wyver. At this moment, the main character quietly asked the man why they weren't starting the exam right away. Org-san closed his eyes and said loudly that he had already passed the exam as beads of sweat streamed down his face, and Lex was shocked by his words. He said they had not started the fight, and the man explained everything was fine since the test was only meant to check their ability to fight monsters or bandits. Having caught the monster alone, he did not need to take the exam. The main character passed and the matter was closed. Afterwards, he congratulated him and called him an adventurer. Lex told Elma the man had said he had passed, then asked if everything was okay, and Elma said it was true if the examiner had said so. He asked her again what he should do now, and she smiled and congratulated him on passing the test. The protagonist raised his hand again and shouted with joy that he was finally an adventurer. From then on, he would live as an adventurer. After a moment, Alma handed him the item and said it was an adventurer's registration card. He must show this card to Stan to get missions, and again after completing them. Adventurers start at F rank and advance in rank as they earn achievements. As his rank rises, more missions become available to him, so he must do his best, and the main character said he will try to raise his rank. Elma said that if he was Kashan Maharikai's, he would not have to do so many missions. He did not understand her and asked again, and she replied that everything was fine. Then she explained the situation with the dragon and said buying it back would be very difficult for them. She stunned him at that moment by saying they could not buy out the dragon, something he had not expected. The main character was shocked, asked her why she made that decision, and figured it was because there were too many on the market and their value had fallen. Org-san asked her what she meant, and whether it seemed strange to her that she said she could not buy it. The girl said the dragon's body was too beautiful. One of the hooded men said there was clearly no other way out. San, the organizer, turned to the girl and said she was being a bit dramatic and just needed to explain why to them. Elma said she thought many already knew there had been numerous expeditions to the dragon. If the dragon is strong, both countries will fight to survive. Even if the expedition succeeds, the dragon carcasses will be partly damaged, so it is normal for materials to be damaged. The girl said undamaged body parts sometimes exist, but they are extremely rare. She said that when people looked closely at this dragon, they would not notice any damage. Apart from the spots, everything was shiny, even its scales. People were surprised by the cut because it was very neat. Then Elma said firmly that this is why the whole dragon will become a treasure. People say a dragon has no useless parts, and this one is the most unusual, but they cannot afford the material. The girl said they had to take it to the capital and put it up for auction, and asked Lex if he could trust them to keep the dragon at the guild, promising they would sell it for a fair price, and he agreed. Elma said that if he put it up for auction he could get a lot of money, and she raised her voice to insist he definitely would. At that moment, the main character thought he had no money and nowhere to eat or sleep. The org-sand behind him was in shock. He told Lex they were looking at huge profits now and that Lex could live in luxury, warned that not selling at auction would leave Lex with lifelong regret, and said he needed the money now. At that moment, the man handed him some coins. The main character was surprised, asked if everything was okay, thanked him, and the man replied there was nothing wrong and he should take them. Lex then said he wanted to thank him and asked him to accept this gift if he had no objection. The protagonist took a dragon scale from his bag, apologized to the man, and said it was only small. The man and everyone standing behind him were shocked. Lex said nothing was wrong with it, but still wanted to thank him, and the man said he would take it, and then asked again if he really could. Org. San brightened, hugged the main character, and said dinner was on him so the main character could order whatever they wanted. After a while, they went out for food and drinks and ate at the nearby bar until they could eat no more. After leaving the bar, the main character rented a room, came home, collapsed onto the bed, and smiled, thinking org. San and his friends were very energetic, but that's how adventurers are, and it was a lot of fun. Lex thought his life as an adventurer would begin tomorrow, felt very emotional, and could not wait. The next day, the main character went to the guild to see what quests were available, found a board of tasks, walked over to it and said he could not find what he needed. A stranger then called to him, addressed him as Dragon Guy, and asked whether he was really looking for a quest. The protagonist said firmly he wanted to take an F-rank quest first, and the man suddenly softened, saying that people with F-rank do exist, and then wishing him luck. When the man said he should try anyway, Lex promised to do so, thought to himself that his words had sounded odd, and decided to look for a task. After a long search, he found an F-rank daily quest to collect herbs. The main character, seeing the trice, chose to take it immediately. 10 herbs sell for 3 copper coins, and the quest is daily, so the more you collect, the more money you can earn. He remembered org. San saying there was one more thing, that if the quest failed, there would be no punishment. Quests usually have time limits or must match the client's wishes. If you accept a task above your rank and fail to complete it, you will be punished accordingly. For the first task, pick daily tasks since there is no penalty, but sometimes they are not worth your attention. The protagonist thought this was what the man had taught him, since the man not only lent him money, but also shared useful information and had already collected herbs in his village, which showed he was truly generous. Just as Lex was about to accept the task, another man called out and asked if he was really going to take the quest. The protagonist smiled and said he planned to collect herbs, and the stranger replied that even children can collect herbs here. The man said Lex was already an adult, then asked whether he was an adventurer like them. The hero looked them over and thought the man was a warrior of light, the woman beside him a marauder, the woman in the hat a magician, and the man in glasses a monk. So he asked if they saw the same, and they agreed. The man introduced himself as Gyro, leader of the Dragonslayer team. The magician said she had told him not to use this name, and the man replied it sounded good. The monk said it was absolutely correct. She told Gyro this name was too shameful. The main character smiled then and said it was cool. Jiro said he understood. The sight was rare, and Jiro could become his friend. Now that he was an adventurer, he said he had to party like an adult. Jiro continued his lecture, saying that only doing herb collection quests would not raise his rank much. The man then explained his plans and said he wanted to surpass the rumored Dragon Slayer. The protagonist asked about this again, and Gyro explained he had heard the protagonist visited the guild yesterday and asked to buy dragons in good condition from him. Flex weighed his words and assumed someone else had done the same. Even if it was only rumors, that stranger probably butchered the dragon more gracefully than he had. Gyros said that because the dragon was defeated too cleanly, the guild could not buy it back, so they decided to auction it in the royal capital. If he wanted to be a man, he should do the job the same way. The man said they'd take quests to destroy monsters. If he still planned on doing small jobs like gathering herbs, it would be better to look for something harder. He added that they would see each other again. The magician apologized to him and said the man always says whatever comes to mind. He's overconfident, but not a bad person. Eventually, the main character entered the forest to finish a quest for herbs, walking and thinking the plants had to be nearby. Lex thought this was ordinary in the village. It looked like the work of adventurers, and he did not see why anyone called it special. The protagonist decided to search the shadows for herbs and immediately found the one he needed. This plant is mostly leaves and will regrow if its roots are left. After collecting the necessary herbs, Lex moved on because he needed a large quantity and found it easy to gather them. The protagonist looked around and realized there really were a lot of herbs here. He regretted that the quest progress wasn't shown, and would also have the chance to return 5 coins to San. In his village, people gathered and used herbs because there were no shops. So collecting herbs to sell was his first plan, and it turned out to be fun, and it was good that he became an adventurer. Smiling, the main character ruffled his hair and said he'd collected enough, so he decided it was time to leave. Listening, he heard the rustle of trees and other sounds from a particular direction, realized they came from there, and used magic on his shoes again. Rising into the sky to scout the area, he spotted an angry boar charging down the road in the distance. The forest devil is a powerful creature. It is faster than a horse, has nearly invulnerable skin, appears frequently, and harms nature and people. The worst part was that they almost always attacked in groups. Lex pictured them moving on with no sign of stopping in the forest. If this kept up, the city would be at risk. At this speed, the boars will reach the city of Tugayin in an hour. The protagonist thought that adventurers should eliminate the danger. At the guild, an adventurer must fight the monsters attacking the city. This is a mission. When monsters appear, the guild sends all members to destroy them and protect the cities. This is how adventurers earn the trust of people in cities and countries. Stories told of adventurers who defended cities from monsters. Children were inspired by the tales passed down through generations. If so, Lex would make those stories real for them. When the green dragon stayed, he did not care much about other materials, but had to be careful not to harm the forest. Then he thought the evil boars might be chasing someone. The protagonist realized they were not heading straight for the city. At times, it was hard to tell their direction. He saw them closing in on someone and then watched the adventurers run away from them. They had probably crossed into boars' territory without realizing it. If anyone was here, using higher magic would be too dangerous. Landing on the ground, the protagonist knew he had to stop the chaos in the forest and use a different kind of magic to fix things. Lex took off again, thinking he needed to reach the pack leader. And when he looked closely, he realized the fleeing adventurers were Gyro and his team. Tripping on a tree root, the monk fell. Gyro saw it and called her name. A pack of boars ran toward her. She sat trembling with fear. To everyone's surprise, the main character landed in front of the girl, and even the boars did not expect it, so they stopped short. Gyro and his team were shocked when Lex declared he was now the boars' enemy. Gyro and his team ran from a pack of boars. He shouted and tried to remember how it had happened. The magician called him by name and said it was all because he had said they could go further, but they did not want to. Gyro told her to stay quiet because no one expected they'd be found there, and at that moment, the boars kept advancing, making the man curse. He couldn't believe they had forgotten everything here. At first, only weak monsters like goblins and kobolds appeared, so he learned to fight from a retired adventurer and did well. Their team had a healer, so if anyone was injured, she could heal them with magic. He figured choosing this place would let him win easily. Now they were in serious trouble, and the whole group fled from the dangerous monsters. Gyro realized he had never heard of them. Near the city, adventurers, guards, or knights usually went out to kill monsters. It was safe here, the adults said. This place is not safe at all. Huge, terrifying monsters are here. He immediately pictured an evil boar's head right in front of him. At that moment, one of his teammates stumbled. Gyro called Norb's name. Seeing she had fallen, he rushed to help and turned to find the monsters almost on her. The man realized they would trample her now. E decided he could not save her because the monsters were powerful and dangerous. Gyro wanted to ignore her and run, afraid he would be crushed too, while another part of him wanted to save her. But he pushed the thoughts away and told himself it was too late. While lost in thought, an unknown figure appeared before them, and shouting, attacked the leader of the boars. Gyro watched in shock as events unfolded. The main character stepped in front of him and his team and said he would now oppose the monsters. Shocked, he thought he might be the only one who had come to help them. The other man was his age, but already so strong. The main character thought he had arrived just in time. Now he had to help Gyro's group, spotting Norb injured and unable to move with that leg. He wanted to cure her now, but had to be careful to avoid provoking the evil boars, so he considered how to cure her without moving. The protagonist's right hand flashed with power. He pointed his hand at the girl and used long-range healing. The girl was surprised the pain had gone. Lex realized it was keeping them there and decided not to get near Norb. The only way out was to use a long-range healing spell. The main character chose to gather the monsters and face them. He shouted for the girl to leave, and she agreed. Lex stared at the boars and knew they would attack no matter what he said. They would use their weight to crush people. He would not let that happen. Tree grip is the ultimate binding magic. It makes trees act like ivy to grab the opponent. This net is woven from highly elastic, very strong tree fibers and enchanted so the boars cannot escape. The magician asked what sort of magic it was and said she had never seen it before. Norb asked if someone could really use magic without a spell. Lex said that in a fight a spell is not the basis. Believing his memories from 2 past lives would let him fight with no problem, he found those lives had little real combat experience, so it was no surprise he did not know how to fight. As an experienced adventurer, Lex said he should solve the problem wisely. Then he drew his sword and said it was the end. A magic beam struck from the sky. He must channel the sky's electricity into the sword to form a giant lightsaber powered by massive lightning. Determined, the main character ordered the boars to accept their punishment and then struck them with lightning. The shapeless blade of lightning kills by roasting victims from the inside out. The sword slays without striking the enemy. The master had him learn this skill in a past life, letting him attain the ultimate sword technique. The protagonist remembered doing this before with a smug look in front of his teacher, who often told him it was wrong. That was not it. Lex was sure he could kill them without harming their skin. Smiling sweetly, he told the men it was over and asked how they were. The protagonist asked if they were injured, and the girl mage said everything was fine. Her magic was spent, but at least they were not hurt. Lex asked about the lack of magic and said that in that case it would be dangerous until they returned to the city. The girl reassured him that everything was fine. He ignored her, apologized, and used a mana transfer skill. The girl was shocked and asked what it was. The protagonist told her gently that he had given her some of his mana, so she could use her magic now. The girl realized she was overflowing, which shouldn't be possible with mana. Lex said if everything was fine, he would take these boars for now. At that moment, Gyro called to him and told him to wait, and the main character lifted his head and asked if something had really happened. Bowing his head, the boy thanked him firmly for saving their lives. The protagonist said not to worry because it's normal for an adventurer. And then the man asked his name. Lex asked him again about the question. Lex thought the man was right. The man knew Lex's name but never gave his own. The main character held out his hand and introduced himself as Lex. He hoped they would work together in the future. Gyro shook his hand and blushed. Seeing him, Lex realized something was wrong and asked aloud if something was bothering him. Gyros said he knew nothing and understood nothing, and he believed he was strong because he had defeated those goblins, but his confidence nearly got the whole group killed. The man said that was why his older brother sought someone like him, and he then noticed a difference in the other man's temperament. The main character said he was exaggerating. Gyro grabbed the main character by the clothes, his face flushing as he said he had already fallen in love with his older brother's strength. The boy dropped to his knees and asked permission to become his disciple. Stunned by how the situation was unfolding, the protagonist realized he now had his first student but did not need him. After some time, Lex returned to the city deep in thought, remembering he had been promoted to D rank simply for completing a herb-gathering mission. The mission was F rank, and it was his first mission, so he rose 2 ranks just by completing 1 mission of that level. The main character remembered arguing with the girl and wondered how that could happen, and she said things were more or less like that. Gyro ran over to him and said this was to be expected from his brother, who had already reached D rank. The girl Mag grabbed the guy by the collar and said he was going with her. They still needed to report on their missions to destroy goblins and kobolds. Lex watched and thought he looked like a pet. The protagonist thought that although he was a little worried when someone asked to be his teacher, it was not so bad because this person had approached him honestly, unlike in his past lives when people had come with bad intentions. Sometimes people praised him as a hero or a sage to persuade him to support their cause. Other times they tried to steal all his research. At that moment, Alma noticed he was deep in thought, asked if something had happened, and he said everything was fine. The girl told him he deserved a reward of 15 gold coins for collecting 50 herb bundles, but he cut her off when she tried to say more. The protagonist asked her to explain why he had moved up in the rankings. Butler of the Viscount Grimoire State. His lord will soon return from the auction and the royal capital, but he must first find the adventurer who killed the dragon. Never did he expect to refuse a dinner invitation, but that refusal let the guild gain the right to protect their adventurers. And with negotiations impossible, he had to travel all this way to deal with the adventurer in person. A girl welcomes John to the Adventurers Guild, and he asks if the adventurer is here. She says he was here recently, but thinks he went on a quest to the man who understands this. The guild refused to reveal what kind of dragon slayer he is, so no one knows who will eventually get to see him. He can't wait any longer. The dragon slayer must be in the center of the crowd. A man asks to see his armor. It shines like jewelry, and any fan can tell it is not ordinary armor. Spotting that this guy must be one of them, the man asks for a minute, but the guy asks who he is. The man introduces himself and asks the other person to tell him his name, if he does not mind. His name is Org, and John says he is now looking, at the request of the Viscount of Grimoire, for an adventurer who meets certain criteria. For example, a strong man wearing such magnificent armor can immediately tell it is high quality, and an amateur like him will recognize it as extraordinary. The man smiles, knowing he understands. This is a special armor made by Master Gordo, and there's more. The armor is made of dragon scales. John is surprised. The dragon was recently put up for auction, so no one could get its scale. That means he must have gotten it by hunting the dragon, and he is surprised to have a dragon scale in his possession. The man asks where he got it and wonders what he will say, while the other man realizes it happened during a quest, and that he is very lucky. Jack thinks this is a weak excuse. He seems unwilling to reveal his identity. If Jack learns the reason, he can control him. To get such good armor, whether he is a high-ranking adventurer or not, the man agrees. John realizes he has admitted it, and, believing himself to be a dragon slayer, asks if the man would like to meet his master because he is looking for strong adventurers who can become knights. If he is willing, he can be hired as a knight. His answer is that he does not want to stand out too much, and John asks him to make sure his lord will sort it out. He doesn't have to answer right now. He can have lunch with his master before answering. John tells him they will prepare plenty of tasty food, and the man agrees. So John knows he has negotiated successfully and now needs to convince him to become the lord's vassal. He expects it will be easy to persuade a man who only cares about muscles. So with the man's permission, he leaves and they will meet when she is ready. The man agrees and watches the other man leave, and everyone around is stunned. They learn that the nobleman himself had invited Org to become a knight, and could not believe he had ignored so many and chosen a man with an untrained eye. One man tells the other to keep quiet, but the other insists he was hired because he wore dragon-scale armor, and the first man is not impressed. His brother thinks they called Org after judging his abilities. The armor only influenced their decision. It was only the green dragon scale he gave him. No one would consider this high-quality armor. It was made by practicing the technique Gordo taught him. Org used the scales because they were free, so the armor is only a prototype. He can't picture her looking amazing, finds that strange, and is scared of how stupid he feels sometimes. They were supposed to go to training, but instead they will complete a couple of quests his brother nearly forgot. And today is the day of sword mastery training. Someone suggests starting the training here. A group gathers, and someone asks what they will do and whether he will teach them a secret technique. The girl calls him stupid. He refuses to teach the secret technique to someone so clumsy. The man gets angry at her, then calms down and suggests starting with body-strengthening magic. He knows the man can't use magic because, as a warrior, he doesn't know how. Everyone has mana flowing through their body, and the amount varies from person to person. No one lacks it. He asks others to watch while concentrating mana in his hand, then swings it. The boy punches the ground and it crumbles while the students watch from behind. Basic body-strengthening magic. When mana envelops the body, it strengthens muscles and increases speed and defense, useful for warriors, magicians, and priests. The man shakes the dust from his palms and asks if anyone has seen it, saying it is simple, but they all say no. Body-strengthening magic seems easy if someone can sense mana, but the man tells him it is far from simple. The girl says he did not use spells and wonders how he did it. They do not know if they can do it and think they are not capable. Even though body enhancement is called magic, it is mostly mana flowing through the body, so he doesn't need to use spells to control it. He does not need to cast spells to get the full effect, so he can move up a step in magic without casting. And the girl asks why he spoke like that, as if he understood everything. The girl tries to concentrate mana, and she can feel it, but it is hard to control, and it moves the opposite way from where she wants. Even so, they can already sense mana, which means they have used spells for many years and cannot control mana without that sense. Looking at her hands, Meguri thinks she can feel mana, but is not sure because as a thief, she often relied on intuition, and now seems able to sense it. Meguri will most likely master body-strengthening magic first, while Gyro will come later. Already exhausted, he tries again and only slams his fist into the ground. He can't visualize his mana flow and his hands hurt. Recommend a more effective way to train him. 3 of them managed to master what the man tried to teach them, and they all show it. They mastered the skill so quickly that the girl says it is very useful because she can fight up close when they are surrounded. The bespectacled girl says her defense seems to have increased more than her strength, and adds she will be useful on stealth missions. Magic enhances certain traits based on individual qualities and boosts attributes according to profession. Meanwhile, Gyro is crying and asks the man if he can do it. The man says he will because he practiced a lot to use it, and Gyro is surprised. Gyro tells the man he is amazing, and the man is surprised and asks what kind of training Gyro had. He recalls the man saying that the amount of mana does not matter if he cannot control it, and that his fighting spirit is the secret, because with that spirit he can use mana without spells. Focusing on the laws of the universe, he forgot about the fighting spirit, and his knowledge earned him the nickname the Sage. The man says he trained and tried to learn the reasons, the cause, the motive, the effect, and the law. If he understood them, he could reproduce the result, but Gyro does not understand him. Simply put, he needs to understand what mana is. Gyro says he would need a talent for magic and that warriors like him cannot grasp it, but the man points to Meguri, a thief who managed to do it. He asks whether he has seen Norb's healing magic and says it is amazing, able to heal a simple wound without a trace. When Gyro is used on him, it produces only a slight softness, and the man says he felt mana. When someone uses healing magic, mana is released, so invite the listener to imagine it. Make Gyro believe he feels mana, but he jumps to conclusions and is mistaken. A man slams into the ground, everything shakes, and everyone looks worried as he lies in a crater from the impact. People praise him and rush over, and he says he managed it and asks if they should worry about him exploding. The protagonist apologizes for this, but considers his explosion a success. Once Gyro learns to use mana, he lands a few more hits. He's happy it's really cool. He never expected he could do something like that. The protagonist accepts their thanks, but they destroy nature. They tell him he is an excellent teacher because he even taught Gyro. She thinks they have definitely moved up by 1 rank, maybe even more. But Lex says this is an exaggeration. The girl in the hat asks why Gyro exploded earlier, and the guy says he had built up a lot of mana in his body and had not redirected its movement, so she asks if he had really built up that much. If someone keeps pouring water into a leather water bottle, it will burst. The same applies to mana. Body enhancement magic strengthens the body by circulating a small amount of mana through it. Gyro produces too much mana, and if it builds up it can tear him apart, so he must release the excess. The girl thinks about it while the man explains that it is magic. The magic people use comes from mana produced inside the body. This explains how to use mana without a spell. By releasing mana, someone can cast magic without a spell. The girl realizes he can do this to cast magic. Doing that releases raw mana, so to use the magic without casting again, they must add an attribute and process it. She knows she can use magic without a spell and, as a mage from birth, will learn it quickly. He believes there is something every wizard should know, but he does not teach it as a teacher. Norbert approaches Lex. He asks whether she is also interested in learning magic without repetition. She is interested, but points to something more important. Gyro lies motionless on the ground after running out of mana. This happens to people who get carried away right after learning magic. The man asked to be left to rest. Norb is glad to hear he is okay. It was just a fall and she thought he was sick. She did not realize that using magic could make her fall, or that it might drain an unusually large amount of mana because it was a special kind of magic. The protagonist tells her she's exaggerating. Then an explosion goes off behind them, and this time Meguri lies on the ground. He carries her after many jumps, She apologizes and he tells her not to, saying it's his fault for not warning them about the consequences. Mina suddenly falls to the ground. The protagonist apologizes, and 3 of the 4 have run out of mana, so from now on, they should manage their mana use. In the Viscount's house, Grimoire the butler meets the master, and John tells him he looks great and asks if he managed to get what he wanted. Although it cost him a lot, Baron Goodsey kept raising the price to intimidate him, so he had to pay more than necessary. Still, he secured the dragon core Celia needed, which improved the accuracy of her foresight. And when John asks if this was done to improve foresight, the man says yes because foresight is necessary to manage the territory. Many people use fortune-telling magic, but she is far stronger and an expert in a form called foresight. Her precision is so exact it even affects how Viscount Germer's territory is managed. John is curious about how dragon materials are used in divination magic, but the Viscount only cares that they can definitely boost Celia's precognition if she can use them. Even more important to him is how things stand on this issue. John is surprised by the question. Exhaling, he tells the man to stay calm. He has already contacted the adventurer. Now only his master must negotiate with him, so he asks whether the man will agree. He recognized his own hunger for power and seemed to prefer a less prominent position, either out of guilt or to find someone to support him. The man says it is not that important. Now they must face the disaster Celia foresaw, and John realizes it is the same one she mentioned earlier. Celia said she saw a terrible sight. It was a vision of his territory engulfed in flames by someone's hand, and he did not believe it at first. However, a dragon, evil boars, and a dark block appeared, each a dangerous monster and a serious threat. There is no way these things could happen in such a short time. For this to happen, it must mean... Someone asks John if he also thinks this will happen on this very land. Ensure he does not let this adventurer fall into another nobleman's hands. Have him begin preparing for the dinner party immediately and ask for the adventurer's name. A couple of days later, the dressed-up girl turns to her father, who asks Celia what happened. She should tell him about her precognition, and he then asks if she saw anything else. She agrees and thanks him for the dragon core he gave her, saying she can see more clearly now and that it was worth the large amount she paid. His help has made her predictions several times more accurate, so she can't thank him enough. Surprised, the man asks what she saw this time, and the girl begins to speak as her father looks on with worry. A swarm of monsters she had never seen before filled the land. The man stares at her in shock and says that because she said it, it will definitely come true. Hiring an adventurer for these events was the right choice because he had grown wary after recent incidents. This is not an ordinary adventure, but a story about a man who killed a dragon, and Celia is surprised. The man explains the dragon he gave her came from that adventurer, who got it after killing the dragon, and she is surprised he could defeat it. John says not only were 3 evil boars recently auctioned to the capital, but the Lord also bought one. The adventurer defeated those boars alone, and the girl was surprised. That adventurer is the same one who defeated the dragon. There is more. A dark block slipped into the city, and an adventurer defeated it. It was probably the same adventurer. The girl notices something. She asks her father the adventurer's name. He says it's Org. She says his name, realizing he alone can save the earth. At that moment, Orc sneezes, scratches his nose, and wonders whether someone mentioned him. The people behind him say it was not them. And today, the Viscount Grimoires placed their hopes on a particular adventurer. The whole group lay on the ground, resting. They were tired. It had been a long time since the girl had moved so much. As rear guards, their only job is to protect them with magic. Body enhancement magic is powerful, but relying on it too much would be dangerous. The protagonist suggests a break to restore some mana, and the girl asks if they will continue. Practice with low mana, so you remember. The minimum mana to activate body enhancement magic is the same as the moment people realize how little money or food they have and start using it wisely. He stands up and says he's recovered. He's not sure, but after a short rest, his fatigue disappeared and he feels full of energy. Elafson says that after all, he is his brother's best student. The girl asks what that has to do with it, but adds that it could be related. When asked what she means, she replies that Jaro is very durable because he is a warrior, but he also needs high stamina and still cannot move freely because his stamina has not recovered. He says learning from Lex had something to do with it, but the man taught him nothing. The protagonist realizes something and asks Jiro to use body enhancement magic, and Jiro agrees. However, the guy notices he is getting ticklish, and the main character knew he had a magic attribute. He assumed Nina and the other magic users already knew this. Adding an attribute to colorless manner would let it become fire magic or wind magic. Body enhancement magic strengthens the body by circulating colorless mana throughout it. Jiro's body enhancement magic lacks colorless mana but has a single attribute, and the man confirms this is the next step in that magic, an enchanted attribute. They ask again about the enchanted attribute. Jiro says it sounds cool, and the man asks them to wait because he can no longer use it. Cheerfully, Jiro says he is really cool, and the girl asks him not to run ahead of her. The protagonist says Jiro added Norb's restoration magic to master body enhancement magic, bringing all these complications. This is only a hypothesis, but with his deep understanding of this feeling, he might unknowingly convert colorless mana into holy mana for restoration magic. The magic of restoration does not rely solely on the strength of his faith. She cannot accept that this is possible, but that is only his hypothesis. He added an attribute to his magic that acts as a healing enhancement, a kind of recovery magic. Other types include flame enhancement. The girl asks if there is one for each attribute, and it is true that magic has 6 attributes: earth, water, fire, wind, light, and darkness. There are manufactured attributes like lightning or ice, and they can add protections such as poison resistance. There are various attributes, which is convenient because you can use them however you need. With more training, he could use body enhancement magic with different attributes, which is really cool. Here, the team suggests continuing training, but they have not yet recovered. If they don't hurry, he'll become super strong faster than them and destroy the same giant monsters his brother did, but the girl says that's impossible. A sudden tremor shakes the ground and everyone looks ahead in shock, while the main character jumps, struck by a bad feeling. They all follow the man and then see that it is a huge viper. The girl asks whether she is too big, and she is larger than the evil boars Lex faced earlier. They ask him what kind of monster it is, and he says it comes from the demon world. This monster does not belong in this world, and its massive size cannot be explained by summoning magic. Jiro says they must defeat her and tells the girl not to be a boar, noting they have mastered body enhancement magic, but the main character would not recommend using it. True to its name, it is a cursed snake that surprises everyone. Approaching it causes anyone nearby to take damage from its fumes. This monster is called the Night Killer. The viper is huge and moves fast. It is strong even without the curse. The girl asks how they should defeat it. Only 3 of them can use magic, so they will return to the city and report to the guild. If it's a monster from the demon world, it's an A-rank mission. Lower-ranked adventurers can't handle it, so he will stop it. She warns he will be cursed. The monster is fast for its size. Then she asks what he will do about the curse. Not yet strong enough to lift curses, she cannot remove it. Even if he asks the high priest, lifting the monster's curse will be costly. He will show everyone the power of body enhancement magic in a real fight. Light surrounds the man as a holy aura covers his body, while he activates a holy enhancement. Beyond boosting attacks against evil creatures, this attribute offers additional benefits. It can reflect curses. The main character faces a giant snake. He leaps up and flies straight at her with his hands raised. The main character ends up inside her mouth and manages to hold his position there. The protagonist declares it is over and attacks the snake from inside with all his strength. The snake flies up, and the main character thinks he sent it too far. Jiro turns to the guy and says it's over. Master body enhancement magic, and you can combine attribute effects to defeat enemies easily. The man tells Jiro that anyone who can cover themselves in restoration magic will eventually be able to do what he can, and Jiro asks whether he is serious. The girl tells Lex the threat of monsters from the demon world is gone. Lex disagrees. Cursed Viper is too large and ferocious to be summoned because it believes a gate to the demon world exists nearby. Unable to sense the Cursed Viper immediately, he figures the gate is hidden by a magical barrier. Confident the gate is most likely nearby, he will go destroy it and gather materials from the damned Viper along the way. Jiro suddenly shouts at the guy, calling him amazing, and the girl asks him not to do that because he scared her. I couldn't help it. A huge monster suddenly appeared and Bro defeated it. He's so cool, like a legendary hero. Jiro wants to fight like his brother, and one day he will prove he can too. Out of nowhere, the gyro starts shaking, unsure what this feeling is, and soon everyone feels it. A man points up and says something is coming here. Everyone looks up and sees a silhouetted figure with wings, not knowing who it is. A horned, winged demon stands looking at people who are horrified as they try to make sense of what it is. Suddenly, he begins descending toward them. The girl tries to act, but they all realize she cannot move. Someone asks Jiro whether the demons are the ones from the legends. The girl confirms they truly exist. The demon asks again about their existence and finally understands everything. Humans live only about 100 years, and even life-extending magic would at best add another century. So those who banished them long ago erased them from history. The evil demon calls them fools for forgetting their sworn enemies. The girl asks the demon why he is doing this. The demon laughs and says it is almost funny that she wants to save the wounded man, but the respite is over. Lunging forward, he tells everyone they will die here anyway. Hearing the girl, Gyro steps in front of the demon and prepares to attack him. Using body enhancement magic, he reaches the speed needed to hit the demon, but the girl grabs him and flies away as the demon fires a black sphere. The demon taunts that they could not dodge that. Then his attack turns toward them, and Gyro realizes it is a homing attack, while the man thinks things are really bad. Now that it had come to this, he decided to try and ask Mina to use her body enhancement magic, and she did not understand why, but agreed. Grabbing her arm, he tells her to hold on. The surprised girl does not understand what he is doing. He hurls the girl straight into the sky. She screams and the demon just laughs. The demon tells him he is trying to sacrifice himself so his friends can escape, and the man rushes to attack, shouting at the demon not to underestimate him. The demon promises he will die before he reaches him. Jiro says that is why he barely managed to hit him before dying. A demon attacks a man with a sphere, and the man raises his hands to block but struggles as the demon screams for him to finally disappear. Confidently, the man says this is not true and rushes forward. Surprised, the demon freezes as the man swings, shouts that the demon should not underestimate him, and lands a blow to the demon's face. The demon falls and hits his face, and the man draws his sword to finish him. The man screams as he swings and finally lands a strike, attacking the demon directly while no one can act. Dust drifts at the edge of the impact. A man asks the demon how he feels. The demon smiles and tells Norb his plan was a success. Peering out from the tree, the girl nods in agreement and smiles. They had a plan. When Jiro saw Norb's signaled after she helped Maguri, he secretly returned the signal after throwing Mina. Norb understood the message. Seeing him jump into the demon's attack, she realized he wanted her to cast a protective spell. The girl had been standing behind the tree watching the whole time. He had the body enhancement magic his brother taught him, Norb's defensive magic, and traces of elemental healing enhancement in his magic, and he relied on those 3 defenses to challenge the demon. In the end, everything turned out well. He sits on the grass and feels pain all over his body because of it. The man says he's still alive, but a demon suddenly appears and shouts insults at him. The demon warns people not to grow arrogant and assume they can win. He kills them all. The demon attacks again, and the man realizes in horror that he is still alive, so they are not strong enough to beat him. The demon says this is foolish and will force them to beg for a quick death. Smiling, the man says he now thinks they've bought enough time. The demon looks at him in confusion, and Jiro asks whether he noticed. Behind him stands the one who will make him beg for a quick death as the main character attacks from directly behind. The strike lands on the demon's back, making it scream and writhe in pain after the man's attack. The protagonist apologizes for being late, then smiles and leaves the rest to him. Everyone smiles at the main character who says he arrived just in time. Feeling uneasy after taking the cursed snake's corpse, he hurried back, but did not expect to find a demon here, the enemy of all mankind. Although caught by surprise and thrown far away, it is not the end. He will return because he is worried about his comrades. Nolan and Mina are okay despite being out of mana, and Maguri appears already healed, while Jiro is badly wounded and can barely stand. The protagonist realizes he must heal them before the demon returns. His hand begins to glow as he uses advanced healing, and a soft light aura appears around him. Everyone looks at their bodies and realizes this is incredible because all their wounds have disappeared. Jira thanks him and he tells everyone to stay back. He will take care of the demon, He actually wanted to help fight it, but he does not want to be a burden, so he will rely on him. The man says not to worry and, smiling, tells everyone to trust him to handle the demon. The demon screams that humans are pathetic and cannot understand how they could dare to do this. The main character asks again and admits he was deceived by those same pathetic people, revealing he is weaker than them, and the demon grows angry. Shouting at the protagonist to shut up, he casts an attack with each hand. The protagonist says firmly he will not let him cause chaos in his world. Dark Flash is his main ability, but he senses no strong energy from it. Could he really be a low-level demon? Watching closely, he notices the black hole is still a problem. He knows this is a gate that most likely links their world to the demon world. It is even more dangerous than the demon itself. The gate sits too close to the city, so he must defeat the demon and destroy it as soon as possible. Then he thinks some more. The man believes that if the demon is level with the gate, he can kill them both at once. Suggesting they be a bit more serious, he draws his sword and says confidently that it is time to begin. The demon screams in rage, but the protagonist remains calm, activates the magic sword, stands, and concentrates. The main character appears before the demon and creates a space rupture, leaving the demon stunned and screaming from the attack. A dissection of reality and rupture of space. Magic that ignores the laws of the universe and cuts through everything in its path. A spatial attack that bypasses all magical and physical resistance. Running, the protagonist thinks he hasn't used large-scale magic in a long time and is relieved it went smoothly, so he waves and says he is done. All four stare at the protagonist in shock. Jiro remembers boasting recently about his unimaginable strength, but it was nothing compared to the protagonist's. The girl says destroying that demon and the gate required only one blow. No one would believe it if anyone were told, and the main character in confusion agrees. The man asks Elma what happened. The girl says his reward for the green dragon and the evil boars has finally arrived. The main character says he has been waiting for this. She reports they also received a reward from the feudal lord for the evil boars, so their total reward is tallied. Jiro says happily that Aniki plans to get rich and is surprised himself, while the girl sighs that it was only a green dragon and tells them not to underestimate these dragons. She told them to go to the waiting room to collect their reward. One man asked if it could be done the usual way. Because it was a large sum of money, it was safer to handle it in the waiting room. Jiro realizes this means he will never find out how much Aniki will get. The girl tells him that even as Lex's closest friend, he must still follow etiquette. She calls him the Dragon Slayer. He screams and begs them not to say the name, since the group name he invented became his greatest shame. The protagonist has no objection to him, and with everyone else present, the girl is surprised and asks about it again. They will find out everything anyway, so it is better they see it for themselves. Jiro is happy because he knows them better than anyone. The girl agrees, fixes her hair, sees them off, and invites them in. Using a key, she unlocks the door, sets a very heavy bag on the table, and tells them it is their reward from the auction. The girl puts another small bag on the table. People wonder what is in the small bag. Maybe it is some change. She says this reward came from selling a green dragon and 3 evil boars, totaling 20 platinum coins. Jiro tells his partner that only 20 gold coins are too few for everything, but the girl says he is wrong because they are platinum coins, not gold. The protagonist realizes that platinum coins are used when gold coins become difficult to use, and that they are special coins. Asking Noel about the price of a platinum coin, the girl magician remembers the exchange rate. She remembered and told everyone that 1 platinum coin equals 10,000 gold coins, and everyone was shocked. The reward of 20 platinum coins is about 200,000 gold coins, and the protagonist, like everyone else, is amazed because this sum is far beyond Gyros's understanding. The girl says that at the auction they sold every monster part: eyes, bones, skin, internal organs, and the core. Each part was sold separately. Selling dragon parts was not expensive, so almost all of it was turned into gold coins. One part of the dragon proved most popular with the participants, and they fought fiercely over it. The main character thinks about what that means. The evil boars were handled without trouble and sold to the nobles. The man says it's still too much money. The woman replies that the feudal lord's cut takes most of the total. The main character asks again about the feudal lord. The reward includes payment for eliminating a particularly dangerous monster, and the man asks about it. When a powerful monster appears on the feudal lord's territory, the one who eliminates it receives a corresponding reward. Although the protagonist understands this, the sum the feudal lord transferred is still enormous. The feudal lord proves to be a good man. The nobleman cares deeply for his people. Decent nobility still exists. The man accepts the reward gladly. Jiro tells him he is incredible. A normal D-rank adventurer could not earn even a fraction of that amount. The man is surprised as well. The reward is 20 platinum coins, as they already know. The money they've prepared here includes an 8% commission. The small bag contains 18 platinum coins, and a small part of the contribution is in the large bag, totaling 4,000 gold. The main character understands what it means for a smaller part to be inside a larger bag. She also says the large sum can be deposited into the guild bank account, but he already has a magic bag for that. If they ever hunt another big game, she tells them to bring the catch to the guild, guarantees a fair fee despite the commission, and asks whether they just want to earn that commission. The girl pretends not to understand what she's saying. The main character accepts it as normal and thinks she also wants to make money. Then he suddenly focuses on the big game. The man recalls killing the snake and asks if they can sell him something. She realized he had already caught more and said happily that it was a great chance to earn money, and the man understood she was a very passionate employee. The girl asks if it would be dangerous if it's not a cursed monster. The guy says yes, it's a monster from the demon world and you can't just remove the curse. They don't need to worry. The cursed snake's curse ends when it dies. The curse works like body-strengthening magic, but with a cursed attribute. It's like when Jiro used healing during practice. The girl asks to confirm he just mentioned a monster from the demon world. The man says yes. It was a monster the demon summoned through the gate. A shocked scream rises when she sees the demon. This is what a normal reaction should look like, an absolutely normal reaction. Seated behind the chair, the man asks Celia what happened, and she describes the premonition. She says the prediction of a catastrophe involving hordes of monsters has disappeared, and she is very happy about it. Both men are stunned by her words. Yesterday, when she used precognition, it predicted a disaster, but that vision has now vanished. The man asks if the earth is safe now, and the girl says yes, everyone can live in peace. Delighted, the man shouts that this is great news, noting it happened right after he hired that guy. Confident he was right, John says the orc must have noticed something in Melloward's words and eliminated the root cause of the disaster. A dragon slayer should be rewarded based on his merits. And as an A-rank adventurer, when he heard Vi say something was wrong, he took matters into his own hands, so he should be promoted to S-rank. She tells them to wait and will call the authorities now. Let them wait here. Minutes later, Elma pushes a man through the door, and he asks what she meant by calling it an emergency. He looks ahead and asks who these children are. The girl says she will explain everything to him now. The girl tells Lex she leads the Adventure Guild and will contact the guildmaster if something is beyond her authority. Shocked, the man learns he is the guildmaster. It's surprising that someone so important had to be here. He says he is pleased to meet you in a barking tone. The main character says the feeling is mutual, gives his name as Lex, and everyone else also introduces themselves. The man is pleased to meet them and asks the girl what business she has with him, and whether she knows he is a very busy man. Elma asks if he is only busy drinking sake and playing cards. A former A-ranked venture, he should be allowed to keep working at that rank because the main character is interested in the former A rank. Noelle whispers to this protagonist that usually you must be at least an A-rank adventurer to become a guildmaster, and the protagonist now understands as the man laughs and says he is simply incredible. Elm tries not to ruin his mood, but a cursed snake was found in the area recently. Barkley asks what it is this time, and she explains that it is a dangerous A-rank monster from the demon world. Suddenly, he realizes what's happening and asks about it again, stunned. Demanding to know how the monster from the demon world ended up here, he urges her to hurry and send an emergency request to the adventurers. The girl tells him to calm down because the snake has been neutralized. Seeing this, the man says they must gather magicians and priests so he can understand. Barkley, stunned, asks if it is true, and the girl confirms it. They also confirmed the gate to the demon world and the demon itself. One man said he did not even know these demons existed and asked what kind it was. If it is linked to the demon world, they must report it to the government. She tells him the gate and the demon have already been destroyed, and the man, shocked again, asks how it all ended. Telling Elma it's not funny even for her, he doesn't admit he's the guildmaster, and the main character steps in to say it's all true. Gyro says Lex never lies, and the guy can show the carcass if you want. Barkley asks to bring the snake's body to the production department, probably because it's just a mutated snake. This is the production department from the inside. They were there for the first time. Here they were cutting up animal carcasses. Barkley says only senior teams can access the production department, and because they can handle major cases, he asks the man to show them the body. One man shows the bag and says, "Here it is," but the other says the damn snake is much bigger. Then a huge snake carcass appears, surprising him and making him ask what it is. Yes, he got it from a magic bag. He is smart, but it had been lost, so it's unclear where he found it. The man doesn't understand because he just brought it from home. In his village, everyone has at least one. They are very convenient. He wants to know what kind of village this is. The man tries to catch his breath as Elma says she was right, and he now understands that it is true. He asks Elma why she did not tell him earlier, but she had explained everything from the moment he defeated the dragon, so it is his fault for not listening. A man asks whether this is the newbie who defeated the dragon, and the protagonist confirms it. If the man had worked harder, he would have known about Lex a long time ago. She asks him to work very hard, and he asks whether she planned this from the start and agrees with her. If he had defeated a dragon on his own and now also had the body of a monster from the demon world, he would naturally believe it. Berkeley asks the man if his name is Lex, and if he was the one who defeated the demon, then asks where the remains of the gate are, and the man begins to tell about that demon. He left the gate and the demon in another dimension. One man asks whether he is serious, another asks if this will be a problem, and he says that if there is evidence he can report it to the government to get their attention. Without solid proof, the nobles will not believe. They doubt anything not backed by evidence. People make up stories to get money. He had seen this in a past life. Jiro says they saw it too. Lex used magic to cut the demon in half and pull him in. Minus says that's right, it was incredible magic. Maguri reports the demon had an overwhelming thirst for killing and believed it could remain there under the church's name. Noel confirms this and the protagonist is surprised. There's also the monster's body from the demon world. If they freeze it and give it to the army, it will surely draw attention to the case. The man apologizes for ruining the evidence, but Berkeley tells him not to worry. Berkeley says the main thing is that there were no casualties. He is sure everyone understands, and he cannot tell anyone about it, since the demon incident is enough to make even higher-ups take notice. Jiro asks whether this means all of Lex's accomplishments have been wasted, and says it's not fair. But Lex replies that it's okay because the safety of civilians is more important. Barkley reassures them that he will give the proper reward and pay for the monster's body. As guildmaster, he promotes them to the rank of adventurers for destroying a dangerous monster, which shocks the protagonist. Jiro praises the man as a B-rank adventurer, but honestly, he wanted to promote him to A rank immediately since the man defeated him single-handedly. If a newbie like him raised his rank too quickly, it would look suspicious, and his rank would rise further after he completed another dangerous quest. The man wants a quick promotion so he can enter dangerous territory. Low-ranked people cannot enter this zone because it is dangerous. The guild sealed it, so it is labeled dangerous. There are 3 types: areas for B rank and above, for A rank and above, and for S rank only. Maguri realizes he must be at least B rank to get in, so he promotes Lex to B rank to gain access to the zone. The man confirms it, dangerous territory as the name says, but the possible reward makes the risk worth it. Clearing this area will almost certainly win them promotions. There is an unusual site inside the zones that must be neutralized. It is expanding, could become a threat, and they may not know about the corrosive earth. Everyone has heard of it. Jiro is baffled and doubts such a place exists. The man says there is a territory near the city where he can start and be officially promoted as soon as he finishes there. Alma says they can ignore the guildmaster's irresponsible statements. They rely on those statements. Their merits are too great to be openly assessed, but they will not go unnoticed and will be recorded for assessment. And the same applies to all their subsequent merits. He hadn't known the dangerous territory existed, but if they could still help in any way, he wanted to test himself. The protagonist smiles and says okay, then steps into dangerous territory. Walking in, they see Ord being asked if it is true. He says it just shows how confident he is. Lex tells Org he defeated the snake, and Org, seeming unusually cheerful, tells him to keep up the good work. Org is glad Lex asked and leads him back to where the animal's body lies. People ask if it's an evil boar or say it is, and he found it while on a quest to destroy monsters. The fight was tough, but nothing could stop his final blow. Lex says it's amazing and expected nothing less. Org says he beat a B-rank monster alone and is getting stronger every day, and his friend asks whether it's because of his armor, or grabs him and tells him to be quiet because luck is also a skill. The main character thinks it's nice to have a friend to fool around with like that. The main character says the equipment is only a tool, since the monster was defeated by the organization, which agrees the main character is right. The hunter thinks parents usually protect young boars, so they are hard to catch. If you cook a baby boar over a fire, the meat will be soft and tender. The Org is incredible because he found the cub, and he is glad today's steak will be very tasty. A friend asks if he will skip the banquet tomorrow. He remembers and says it's important because nobles won't ignore someone of his rank, so a true A-ranked adventurer should accept. The protagonist realizes he is amazing. If invited to a banquet, he would be alarmed and decline the invitation, but tonight, he will get drunk. A crowd gathered as Gyro cried and shouted that he would be very lonely without Lex, and everyone around stared at him. Mina tells him to calm down and that he is not a child anymore, but he does not understand. He gets angry and says Lex is leaving, as if she does not understand. The guy suddenly brightens when he realizes they can just go with Lex, but Mina tells him not to be stupid because they are only F rank and cannot enter the Forbidden Zone, which is accessible to adventurers with B rank. Indignant again, he is hit on the head by the girl, who demands he stop whining. The main character realizes they are like brother and sister. The man says they just need to raise their rank, and Noel says it is not as easy as it seems. They are only F-rank adventurers, so they must do something extraordinary to catch up with him. He tells them not to worry, because they have already mastered body-strengthening magic and will grow much stronger quickly if they keep practicing. Strong people don't rely on talent alone. They achieve success through hardship, like Gyro and the others who hope to become dragon slayers one day. Gyro asks the man if he thinks they can definitely become stronger. The main character agrees, saying he's absolutely sure, and Gyro, happy, says he'll still catch up with him. The guy will wait for him, but Mina has serious doubts by the time the other reaches B rank. Lex will likely already be S rank. Talking about Lex, most people agree with him, but Lex thinks they are overestimating him. Mina thanks him for teaching magic, and promises to do her best to learn lightning magic. And he says she will be able to teach it in a short time. The protagonist can always return if he feels lonely, and meanwhile they will raise their rank. No one left can teach us magic better than the main character, she thinks. The city's mages only taught the basics, so it's no surprise the students want to learn more. He asks about visiting his home village. He owns a magic textbook he wrote in the village, and Mina, surprised, asks to see it. But the man says there is nothing special about it. He wrote it to motivate people learning magic. Mina says this is a very interesting village. Overall, the textbook author only described magic for children, and I doubt it will help them. His village is to the west beyond 2 mountains. About to leave, he asks them to take care of themselves, and everyone stands before him to see him off. Elma also tells him to be careful, and says Orgo was summoned by the feudal lord, so he asked her to give him a message. He is sorry he cannot see him off, but wishes him a good journey. Even the guildmaster wanted to see him, but he is tied up with work. The man thinks the guildmaster is afraid of Elmu. Gyra tells the guy he will catch up with him, asking him to just wait. Mina says goodbye to him. Megari says she expects souvenirs from him, and Noel tells him not to take her seriously and to be careful. People ask him to try to surprise everyone there because they will meet again. He would like to stay here a little longer. This place has become as cozy as his native village. An adventurer's life is full of adventure, and he shouts that they will meet again, then uses the wind wing, and everyone is shocked when he flies up. Mina is surprised he can use flight magic, asks whether it is that hard to master, and says that although she is not a mage, she was shocked by how incredible it is. Researchers have studied the art of flight for a long time, but even after all these years, no one has fully mastered it, and there are rumors the military and government are still funding the research. Riding a monster is much easier now when it wants to fly, like Noel fought. Lex is amazing and always does crazy things. Gyro shouts that it's time to train. He will train as hard as he can to catch up with Lex, and then go with him. Mina says training is good and asks if he wants to learn more about Laxi, and he agrees. When Lex spoke about his home village, everyone grew curious about what it was like. Then everything is decided. Mina says they will go to Lex's homeland. Noel says that if it concerns the homeland, they will find out the source of his power anyway. They are packing their things, and finally they will find out the secret of his incredible power. Everyone cheers. Then they all notice that even the guildmaster is here, and Mina asks what he is doing here. He thought it would be rude not to see him off, but he had no time, and he wanted some screen time so Elma would know it wasn't to relax. Elma urges them to get back to work and pulls the guildmaster along, who says he is interested too. Shouting, he tells them to inform him if they find anything, and Elma says that's enough chatter and it's time to get back to work. The man in the palace thanks Org for accepting the invitation and tells him to relax and enjoy the food. Org agrees, saying the dishes look extravagant. Cutting off a piece, he tastes it. It is surprisingly delicious. Everyone is sitting at the table. The man brought a bottle of wine. The Viscount drinks it and tells Org he heard they caught another evil boar. Org says yes, but he recently beat one of them, and the man heard he did it alone. Org says you need special skills to defeat a huge monster, but that was not true because this one was small, so he won. And if it had been larger, the result would have been different. The girl says he can still beat a B-rank monster alone, as expected of an A-rank adventurer. The man says he is not only modest, but also very talented, and he is glad to get to know him better. The auction reward for the dragon and the evil boars must be enormous, so that kind of money makes staying an adventurer pointless. The man asks about becoming something like a knight and drinks wine. My lord has finally addressed the main topic. A man like him could defeat even a dragon. If they had such a man among their knights, they could keep the other nobles in check. My lord might even offer marriage as payment to hire him, depending on the situation. And if that happens, Lady Celia will be sad and a different plan will be needed. Confused, the man doesn't understand which dragon they mean and looks at them. The man talks about the dragon and the evil boars sold at auction. That was his doing. I wonder if he knows it has become a hot topic even in the royal capital. The girl says they got the dragon's heart because of him, but the man doesn't understand. This makes the butler think. The man heard that the adventurer from this city who defeated the dragon and the evil boars was not him. He knows he does not want to stand out, but there is no need to lie. The butler believes Mellard was right and does not need to pretend to be stupid. Org tells them he did not defeat the dragon. Another adventurer did, and an awkward silence follows. He defeated the evil boar, but it was his first time. The man asks if it was the sixth, but the boy denies it. The man asks John what this means, and Celia asks him to explain. The guy wonders whether they will explain what is going on, and the man and Celia get up from the table. Laughing nervously, John says Org is a talented fighter who can defeat the evil boar, and he is glad Milord found such a capable subordinate, after which they both yell at him. Seeing Hexi, the protagonist is stunned by its beauty and heads straight for it. He finds the forest enormous. Even in past lives, he never saw anything like it, and he wonders whether any forest could be bigger. He suddenly notices a magical glow of fire and light coming from the adventurers who entered the forest. The man says this is one of the dangerous regions, a forest of demonic beasts. This is a B-rank zone. From the name, the monsters here are beasts. He should land and go through the gate. His actions will likely shock people. The protagonist looks ahead, surprised to see people on the street going about their business. This place likely has B-rank adventurers, which is why it is so lively, and you should first visit the local adventurers guild. The door creaks open, and he thinks this will be his new base, with many people inside. The guild also served as a tavern. He'd heard about it before, but seeing it in person felt different. Here it's better to focus, while at the notice board he sees children in the building. They look younger than most adventurers and are new like him. He understands that quests rated C or lower have nothing to do with the forest. He could take a couple of rank C or D quests, but some quests are exclusive to rank B and above, so he might start with those. A stranger comes up behind him and says he cannot take the quest at his rank. He looks around and sees no one, and then the stranger asks if he is listening and grabs his shoulder. Turning around, he sees a girl who says she's telling this to someone since no one else is here. Struck by her beauty, he says it aloud and apologizes for being vulgar. Blushing, she accepts the apology since he was only complimenting her and she has no reason to be angry. Suddenly, she says, that's not what she meant. Explaining the quests are linked to the demonic beast forest where B-rank adventurers can enter. So a newcomer like him needs a quest that fits his abilities. And he says he is B-rank. As mentioned, he is now B-rank, promoted the other day and has permission to enter dangerous areas. She asks if he is serious, he says yes, and she becomes nervous. The girl says she is very sorry, but the guy says everything is fine. His name is Lex, and he is from the city of Tagay. Find the girl's name. She calls herself Lilara, an adventurer who lives in a forest of demonic beasts. She asks if he came here for the demonic beast forest, too. He says he was promoted in rank. His guild leader told him about the territory, so he went to the nearest city that controls it. Lilara knows he has already finished all the preparations, but the man does not understand what he is saying. From his reaction, it was clear he had no idea what the forest of demonic beasts really was. He assumed it was just a forest full of beasts, but that was far from the truth. She asks him to listen carefully, saying the forest of demonic beasts is a place where every creature is a monster, and he is frightened. Animals, bugs, and even trees are monsters. There are no ordinary animals there, which is why it is called that. Monsters disguise themselves as trees and plants and attack. For example, slime. To enter the forest, he needs potions and antidotes, plus barriers made from monster incense. If he is not fully prepared, he will not have time to loot. The forest is very dangerous. Preparation is essential. If he has no companions, he will have to join a company that has a barrier maker if he understands and agrees. The girl hopes he understood everything. The main character was surprised when she suddenly got angry, but he felt relieved because she is actually kind. Her words were sharp, but she was only worried about him. The man thanked her for telling him everything, and she told him he was honest. The ability to listen to others is a valuable skill, and explains why he is already a B-rank adventurer at such a young age. The guys tell her she refused to listen to their advice, so she had to learn everything the hard way. She shouts back that it was a long time ago. She says that's exactly why she hates shameless people. Even so, they seem like good friends. She sees a B-rank for the first time who is about her age, and he asks if she is a B-rank too, and she says yes. It's good to know there's someone else his age. He understands the feeling because everyone here is older than her. Fate had already decided this. Smiling, she offers the guy something to eat, but he says there is no need to treat him. She asks him to accept this as an apology, and then she agrees. The city sits near a dangerous region, so many traders come here seeking rare materials found only there, giving adventurers plenty of work. The protagonist now sees why so many requests were ranked B or lower. Monsters sometimes leave the forest, and defeating them is a rank B quest. Below, monsters rarely leave the forest, so this is seldom seen on the notice board. She tells him his appearance and way of speaking make him seem younger than her, and asks how old he is. The guy says he is 15, and the girl notes he has only been an adventurer for a year, so earning rank B in that time shows he is very talented. The protagonist denies it, saying he was probably just lucky and that luck is part of skill, and wonders whether to invite her to the next birthday. But the other man says it's still a whole year away. The girl asks again, and Lex says that by next year he will have just turned 15. Everyone looks at them as the girl asks whether his coming-of-age ceremony was recent and how long he's been an adventurer, and he replies it hasn't even been a month. The girl starts shaking and tells the guy he is just a fake. Then she asks what she means and slams her fist on the table. She shouts that this is disgusting and that he must not come near her again. The protagonist asks what she means as the girl walks away. He does not know what to do or what he said, and he is unsure whether to follow and apologize. He cannot apologize when he does not know what for. One of the guys laughs and tells the newbie not to be sad because she hates rank hunters like him. The main character asks who he is. The man answers that his name is Ivan, and that he is an adventurer living in the city. After they shake hands, the protagonist introduces himself and asks him to explain what he means by rank hunting. This is about people who join a high-level party and get carried so they can level up even though they are weak. Noble children use this trick. The man does not understand why anyone would do that. He understands her feelings because they will not survive in the forest, and that worries him, so he should face reality and take on quests he can manage. The protagonist says he was never in a squad. He only accompanied someone and did not join. The man understands he meant he became a B-rank adventurer using only his own abilities, and the other man agrees. The man suddenly bursts into laughter and tells the other man there is no point in lying anymore. It's for his own good that he starts at F-rank, and admitting his weakness is an act of strength. No one believes him, and that is a serious problem, because if it stays like this, moving from city to city will be difficult, so he will need a way to convince them. The man offers a quick demonstration of his strength. One quest can help him with this. If he completes it, he will be recognized despite his frail appearance. This quest is a trial by fire, and the main character realizes he doesn't understand what he signed up for. The man tells the boy to follow him and show the others his abilities. He does not fully understand, but if he clears up the misunderstanding by proving his abilities, it will be fine. They have arrived at the place. This forest is full of demonic beasts. As he had heard, every creature here is a monster. Even the plants spread their own seeds to expand the forest. That is why neighboring countries always give the same quest. The tree people are cutting down is a plant-like mimic. It pretends to be a tree and attacks from behind. These monsters are a constant nuisance. Baptism of fire is the constant drive to exterminate them. Newcomers must fight plants at the entrance amid screams and tears. Suffering will haunt him until he grows stronger. The hero must do everything they can to destroy 10 of these plant monsters. If he can't kill at least 10, he won't last a minute in the forest. That should be doable for him. He must do everything in his power to exterminate 10 plant-type monsters. If he can't manage that, he won't last a minute in the forest. The man says the eternal quest is training for beginners, and that those who are weak and cannot get stronger quickly must accumulate experience to become adventurers. This quest is meant to train thieves and monks with low combat stats. In this forest, even the rear guard must fight in close combat. That sounds harsh for a guy. The man tells the guy to go if he understands, pats him on the back, and reassures him they will be here if anything goes wrong. The main character agrees. The guys tell him not to overdo it and say it's okay if it doesn't work out. He knows they tease him sometimes, but still care, probably because they think he's a newbie. The protagonist thinks it looks like only Ivan's group and the group fighting nearby are here. He feels he must act to avoid unwanted consequences. In this forest, all the monsters and neighboring countries are also doing their best to stop the forest from growing. With no reason to hold back, the main character will burn everything here to the ground. The protagonist unleashes hellfire, creates a ring of fire, and aims it straight ahead. Fire magic is a spell that shoots extremely hot flames in a straight line, strong enough to instantly consume the oxygen in the air. This magic suits them perfectly. If they don't want to deal pinpoint damage, he sees stunned people. He says that if it is not enough, they should wait, tells them to stop, and asks what it was about. Hellfire sounds terrifying. The man asks what he means by simple, but it's ordinary household magic. The crowd begins celebrating the arrival of this remarkable newcomer, everyone drinking a beer. One man said it was amazing he could use magic. The other saw it too, and after so much time with his axe, destroyed them in an instant. The protagonist says people overestimate him. Nothing he did was special. In his village, they used this magic to mow the grass. The men think his house is more like a demon's lair. If he is with them, forgets his name and asks, the man reminds him that his name is Lex. The men agree that as long as they keep their legs, they have nothing to fear and will no longer have to work in that forest. People ask him whether it is really that dangerous there. The local monsters are not only strong, but also very resilient. The trees are full of water inside, so they are hard to burn. Their large numbers have left them with too much material and no buyers, so few adventurers take this quest. If no one does anything, the forest will continue to grow for many reasons. With Lexa here and his fire magic, he can burn anything, whether raw wood or tree monsters, in an instant. They wait for him to clear this forest and clap for him, but he asks them to stop because it hurts. The main character suddenly notices that the same Lilara is coming toward them. She walks past the man with pleasure. He must act to clear up the misunderstanding. The man tells him to relax and not worry. If he brings back parts from the monsters he killed in the forest, she'll believe his powers are real. Ivan will give everything he's got, as expected, and inspires confidence as a seasoned adventurer. The man shouts and suggests celebrating early, but when you think about it, he doesn't inspire much confidence. Standing in the house, the main character realizes it is time to go to the forest of beasts and wonders which demon to choose. A tall girl suddenly calls out to the man and asks if he is Lex. The guy says he is, though it is unclear who asked him, and the girl apologizes to him for being rude. Marisha introduces herself as the assistant to the head of the Hexi City Adventurers Guild. The man thinks she is an important member of the guild. Greeting her warmly, he looks pleased. His name is Lex. He asked what she needed. They had a task she wanted his help with, and he wondered if he should listen. A man asks about the task. This is a direct request from the assistant guildmaster. It will be difficult. He doesn't think refusing before listening would be rude, and he says he's not promising anything yet. If everything suits her, they can start. Mauritius says he has the right to decide whether to accept the request, and after considering all circumstances, the guild will not force him. Everyone is watching, and the main character asks the girl what kind of task this is. Mauritius recommends starting right away and wants him to stop the forest from growing. Adventurers told her he was an incredible fire mage who had burned part of the forest to the ground with his magic. She sent guild members to investigate, and they confirmed the stories were true, reporting that a huge area of forest had been destroyed. Having already been baptized, he understands the general situation in the forest, so he asks if this is about the forest growing without stopping, and the girl answers yes. Already working with other countries on a solution, they still lack the strength to stop the forest from growing because their opponents are endless monsters. If the forest kept growing at this rate, the day when it would swallow the entire city of Hexi was close, and they had already prepared for it. Suddenly Lex appeared, and everyone was overjoyed to hear the news, thinking it must be Mana from heaven. He does not understand her. She asks him to use his magic to burn the heart of the forest, and will pay him based on how large an area he burns. He will receive 1 silver coin for each square meter. Destroying the trap plant pays 5 copper coins. He asks why she is so generous. She says it will save them time and effort, and that even a double reward is too much. Unfortunately, the cash reward is limited, so the shortfall will be covered by a promotion, and he will move up the ranks instead of receiving the money. A man asks whether there are any restrictions on burning the forest, and the woman says if it's possible, she wants him to burn the whole forest. If the forest's shape becomes extremely distorted, that area will be ignored because it lacks resources, and monsters there will keep sowing new seeds that change the forest's shape while the forest itself keeps growing. The protagonist knows that if the form is distorted, the adventurers will lose interest. This is true. In the worst case, if the forest stretches into a long shape, it could completely cover the city, so he wants it burned around the perimeter. Transportation will be provided for requests from neighboring countries. All efforts will be made to secure full government subsidy. The reward is generous. Everything will change if he loses his freedom to act. And picturing himself fighting with an ordinary sword, he wonders if he could take on other quests after accepting this request. The girl explains that, of course, while the forest is periodically burned, she can also take any other quests. If he thinks about moving to another city, the girl says he has the right, but she'll be healthy only if he first burns down the forest. Since he can treat the request as a normal quest during an adventure, he accepts it, and the girl thanks him. Once he has destroyed the forest, have him report it to the staff, and she will immediately confirm the request's completion and the girl's size. The protagonist realizes that listening was the right choice from the start. He considers which request to accept. Ivan arrives and asks whether he will take the quest. A man says he looks bad and asks what happened. Ivan has had a bit too much. The man offers him advice in the bee-steaming forest while ignoring plant-type monsters. He is shocked because he assumed all living creatures were monsters. Plant monsters cannot move, so the less time he spends, the better. If a man thinks he is in danger, let him leave. Those who cannot do this will die. He will go in and out often, and should learn to retreat in time. After understanding everything, the main character thanked the man, who told him to take care of himself. Thinking of monsters, he spots a B-rank quest to exterminate forest wolves. The target of the extermination leaves the forest, attacks livestock, then runs back. The situation remains unresolved. The man chooses him. Having already cleared the village of pests, he will choose him. This will be his first quest in the beast-demon forest. A group of soldiers walked from the castle toward the forest, talking about how well they had slept, checking on one another, and generally feeling pretty good, saying the cause made it worthwhile. I even smiled and said the work was going well thanks to the doctor. That was good, because they were now in the black. Suddenly a soldier's face twisted in shock. Before them stood a forest with broken branches and trampled grass. Even threw his axe over his shoulder and, shocked, said that the branches were destroyed. They had no idea who could have done it. It felt like they had been deliberately cut off. At first I thought it might have been Lex. He told himself he couldn't do it because as a magician, he'd have simply burned everything. Someone had cut the branches on purpose for reasons unknown to them. After checking everything through, they decided it no longer mattered and followed the road, and the group continued along the path among the cut branches. Earlier, while in the forest, Lex decided to set out on a journey, moving carefully among the trees and cutting away each branch that blocked his way. Surveying what remained, he chose not to underestimate them, and a tree monster attacked him. After clearly repelling his attack, the man moved on, and people say this is easier. Instead of trying to defeat them, you only need to neutralize them and move forward. Moving quickly, he cut tree branches and after some time found himself near the fence. Sighing heavily, he said he was very tired. Following Ivan's advice seemed pointless, since running back and forth made no sense, and Militia had told him to do what he thought best and what was most convenient for him. He thought for a while and came up with a plan. If all the nearby monsters attacked, it would be much easier, so he began to focus his magic. Scanning the area to make sure no one was nearby, he shouted that he would set these trees on fire and told everyone nearby to hide. A magic ball formed in his hand, and he realized he had already warned everyone and ordered hellfire to burn. A bright flash followed, setting the surrounding vegetation ablaze. Later he surveyed the wasteland, now nothing but smoke, and decided it was better this way. Now adventurers no longer have to keep running out of the forest to rest. He smiled, thinking this was great, and decided to build a similar road to the city. By the fence, the man raised his hand with a satisfied smile and said he was finished here, ready to go search for forest wolves. A long howl rose from the dark forest, and the boy knew he had reached the right place. Jumping up quickly to scan the area from above, hovering in the air, he searched for the sound and saw a small village to the side with its gates broken. On closer inspection, the smaller figures were wolves. The larger ones were adventurers defending the village, and a battle was underway between them. The protagonist landed, scattering stones and dust while the wolves that saw him closed in. The wolves closed in with menacing growls. Spotting a howling wolf, the protagonist realized it was the pack leader. He needed to deal with the leader first, then handle the rest. Drawing his sword, the protagonist focused on the charging, roaring beast, and with one swift swing, dispatched the enemy. The others howled and fell back. The boy gathered his mana and fired a spray of sparks that made the wolves tremble with pain. The quest was B rank, and the forest wolves were only C rank, so they were not very strong, but they attacked in packs, and the main character faced a large number of opponents. X. Hailing calmly sheathed his sword and said they were needed for a quest, so they would need to be brought in good condition, and he decided the tails would be suitable for this. Quietly gathering them, he was approached by the breathless adventurers he'd seen earlier, who wanted to know if he had defeated the wolves. Lex said he only needed forest wolves, so he used magic once, and those who arrived were amazed by his power. She told him it was great that he handled them so quickly. As he put the tail in his bag, he shrugged it off as nonsense. The adventurer said it was great that Lex was there and asked if Lex was a B-rank adventurer. Lex confirmed and said he had only recently become one. The enthusiastic girl told him he was really great, so young but very talented, and the main character scratched his head in embarrassment, not knowing what to say. Afterwards, he anxiously asked whether he had interfered with their work, since they were pursuing forest wolves and might have been tasked with destroying them. Smiling, the man reassured him that they only needed to protect the pasture from attacks. The girl said the clients know how hard it is to catch wolves fleeing the forest. They will report that they have managed to calm them. As they left, they waved and told him the villagers would now be safe, asked him not to worry, and said they would not take credit for his work. The boy laughed. Smiling slightly, he said his task was done and it was time to return. Militia stared at the picture in front of her, stunned. She could not make sense of what had happened. Instead of a forest, a wide road now lay before her. She was informed immediately that Lex had burned the forest. A subordinate urged her to hurry, which is why she came, and he was extremely emotional when he described the road that had appeared in the forest. It was so wide that a whole cart could pass through, and the assistant, shocked, asked the girl who had done it. Her feelings were just as strong, and she knew only Lex could do that. Suddenly, someone called the main character. Frightened, he turned and asked what had happened. Malasha ran up to him, eager to know if he had made a new path in the forest. Calmly, the man said it was him. Now that they were adventurers, it would be safe to go there. She forced herself to stay calm and managed to thank him. At first, she was silent, then said in disbelief that she had asked for part of the forest around the perimeter to be destroyed and bit her thumb, overcome with emotion. Approaching the blushing man, she whispered they'd sort it out later. She had a job frame. The main character looked at her questioningly. Explaining the main point of the request, she outlined which territories she was in and said she would pay extra for them. Later, the main character came to report that he had finished the task. They told him he had tried hard. He replied that today he burned that part of the forest and paved a new road there. He also said he had orders to destroy the 6-armed monkey, and the girl said she had already examined the monster's parts, and that the person in charge would inspect the site for the road widening. Afterwards, they would give him his reward. The arson fee would be 24 gold. She would give him that along with 30 silver coins for today's order. The protagonist thanked her with a smile. Stretching, the boy said he'd done a good job. Realizing he'd just set the forest on fire, he thought it was a great stroke of luck, but felt he'd forgotten something. A sudden realization hit him that he had forgotten to show Lilara the monster, and he sank to his knees, exhausted, thinking this would clear up the misunderstanding. For that reason, he took on the task of destroying the monster and provided the necessary items. Dejected, he said he would have to take on a new assignment tomorrow. Eating seemed like it would cheer him up while people around him shouted that they needed to eat. Suddenly, Ivan smiled and called to him, then walked over, clapped him on the shoulder, and asked if everything was okay. Lex said he was in pain. The man said they had struck a big deal because of him. The other man didn't know what he was talking about. Ivan winked and said he had cleared a path through the forest, making their work easier, and now things were going much better for them. If it gets dangerous, step onto the road to catch your breath, then return to the forest. There is now room to explore and collect items. The sad man laughed and said he was glad to be helpful. The man wondered what had happened to him because he looked downcast. Hugging the man with a smile, she said the old man would give advice, but first they had to eat. Later, at the table, Ivan asked him if they still had not cleared up the misunderstanding. Lex said he couldn't do it in the morning, planned to bring the loot that evening, but accidentally handed the items to the man, who laughed. The boy pleaded through tears for the man not to laugh, and the man apologized, then said not to worry and asked what would happen if he succeeded, leaving the main character surprised by the offer. Ivan said he was a famous adventurer in the city, and that if he vouched for him, the girl would definitely believe him. Lex thought he was a very good man. The man said he was helping them too, so it was not a problem, and the men nodded in agreement. The protagonist was relieved to have cleared up the misunderstanding, saying the girl was late and it was already dark outside. Ivan said they should spend the night in the forest, since the barrier was still up and they could afford it, and he told them not to worry because they would stop on the main road at the square. It was convenient. A couple of days later, everything changed. Suddenly, a man called them and asked whether they had talked about Lilara. Ivan said everything was correct. The adventurer replied that a couple of days earlier she had said she would go deep into the forest, then left and never returned. Those words stunned the protagonist. The forest limits how much you can carry. The deeper you go, the more monsters attack, ignoring the barrier. Ivan warned in a tense voice that it was dangerous to go deep into the forest. Lex saw the girl was now in grave danger. He said that, after pushing themselves a bit too far, they had entered the deepest part of the forest. That's where they found the Zenzoe herb. While they were celebrating, the girl approached and asked in a menacing voice where they had found it. Ivan was surprised by the very rare healing herb they found, and the protagonist thought it could be used to make a powerful medicine. The man added that they could not imagine that the day after they returned, there would be an entire road through the forest, which made them very surprised, and his face grew dark. He also said the place where they failed to find healing herbs is 2.5 days away on the road to the northeast, and it has very strong monsters, so for safety they turned back to areas where the beasts are weaker. They set up camp there and only then went back. When Lex asked Yvonne how far it was, he said this part of the forest was far from the road, hard to reach now, and pointed to the spot on the map. The protagonist later asked if it would be better for them to go searching. I said no, because it was already dark. If she was already returning, they could miss each other and get into trouble. He warned them not to underestimate the vast beast demon forest, because everything there is dangerous. Nights are far more hazardous than days, and the little girl and her team are only B-rank adventurers. The men said they would not do anything foolish, even if something happened to them, because that was the fate of adventurers. I can confirm what they said. If they seek trouble, they must face the consequences. First, take care of your own safety and act accordingly. The protagonist clenched his hands, knowing he had to wait until dawn and choosing to trust Lilara, a B-rank adventurer who had been doing this longer than him. Ivan smiled and said they could join the search if needed, but not for free. They called him petty, and he said they were professional mercenaries. Just then, a knock sounded. The door swung open, revealing a group of exhausted people on the threshold. Everyone in the tavern turned away, stunned. Their condition stunned everyone, who wondered what had happened and began shouting for someone to use healing magic. A passerby recounted that after they set up barriers and made camp, a pack of blade wolves attacked and everyone panicked because the wolves were A-rank monsters. This name refers to creatures that fire razor-sharp bones which slice through their prey. Their bones are extremely strong and they attack in packs. The adventurers wanted to know where it happened. He said it was about a day's drive from here. They were ambushed soon after they set up camp. People were shocked because it had come very close. They had never heard of monsters in that area. The man said that was not all. One of the monsters was black, and none of them had ever seen anything like it. The adventurer said he coordinated the pack's actions, and they told him it was likely a mutant because it behaved differently from ordinary monsters. Rumors said the monster had mutated and was now as strong as rank S, so they might assign a special mission to deal with it. Lex asked what it was. He was told that if the situation was not brought under control, the city could suffer. When dangerous animals appear, the guild sends an urgent mission. Once such a quest is announced, adventurers of rank C and below cannot take quests for the corresponding territory, and adventurers of rank B and above can only take this one. That shows how high a priority this quest has. We should step forward and loudly announce that the guild is reporting a special cleansing mission, which has two parts: cleansing the pack led by the Black Wolf and guarding the road to the Beast Demon Forest until the cleansing is complete. An attack on the merchants camping on the road would make people see the path as too dangerous and stop using it, so the guild must eliminate the monsters that caused all the problems. Ivan realized they wanted to prove the road was safe. The girl said they would get 150 gold coins for every wolf killed during the cleanup. A reward of 600 gold coins would be paid to anyone who destroyed the leader. The people nearby were stunned by the amount. It was 1.5 times the usual reward. I even thought there were quite a few of them. The main character didn't understand what the man was saying. The man said the pack had about 50 members. Each was only a B-rank monster, but with so many, the adventurers from the guilds would have to join forces for a joint raid. This pack is 10 times larger than the evil boar group, and that number is why we assign it an A rank, because the mutation is so strong their existing information will not help them. Lex realized the mutated monster, though it looked similar, had very different abilities and was likely stronger than normal, so they were at a disadvantage. People began shouting that they had to get to the square and wait for the departure. They also considered scouting the forest from afar using magic. Yvonne asked the others what they planned to do next, since they had just finished the previous work, and the protagonist was puzzled that they were not going to leave. He said the reward was good, but there was no point in taking the job out of greed, and the cleanup would take a long time, so they would not be late even if they left tomorrow. And for now, they needed to rest. Ivan understood him, which was to be expected. He does not follow events but knows his own situation and is tired today, so the morning is wiser than the evening. The wounded man began begging everyone to save Lilara because she was still in the forest. The boy was horrified and ran up to the man asking what was wrong with her. He said he was wounded and that she distracted them so he could escape. The protagonist was stunned and wondered if the girls had managed to escape in time. People nearby said that, given how long it took to get here, it was already too late. But if a barrier stone existed, there was still a chance to survive. The pack had broken through despite him, leaving it defenseless. He clenched his teeth and remembered they hadn't resolved that misunderstanding. Lex spun around and rushed to help her, and I told him to wait and not enter the forest because it was dangerous now. But panic filled his eyes and he was only thinking about the girl. The man grabbed him roughly and shouted that, even so, no one would be foolish enough to go alone. At least he understood how huge the forest was. Looking away, Lex said he had no teammates. The man tapped his chest and said he was one. The boy did not understand him. A man shouted that the little girl was covering her comrades and had gotten stuck in the forest, so if you find her, please accompany her. The people around him cheerfully agreed, decided it was time to leave, and the protagonist was impressed by their reaction. The man said adventurers are comrades who don't abandon their own in trouble, and besides, now is a good time to earn some extra money, so finding the baby shouldn't be that hard. One of the men told him he wasn't made for speeches and asked him to stop. Everyone there began preparing for the journey, gathering their weapons and necessary supplies. Seeing this, Lex nearly cried. Ivan said they were moving out too and ordered everyone to restore mana with a potion. People complained it did not taste good, but were told not to be picky. After drinking the medicine, the man noticed it did not taste good. They were ready to go. Lex went with them. As they reached the forest, Ivan said they should walk in a straight line and leave glowing crystals so they would not get lost. The command was to ignore monsters unless they blocked the path. They obeyed and set off. A beam of light revealed the monsters ahead. People tried to see who it was. When a roar came, they realized it was an ogre bear. They were a male and a female, each a tireless mountain of muscle, and their skin was so thick that even a battle axe could not cut it. I even ordered the magician to hide them with magic, so they had no time. The girl obeyed, but the main character said time was short and he would deal with them himself. He moved forward abruptly. Leaping sharply, he charged straight at the faces of two giant bears, kicking up clouds of dust. The bears stared at him with furious expressions. The main character cut down the roaring monsters one by one, wielding vacuum blades they tried to dodge but could not. The protagonist stood among the fallen monsters and said he was done and they could move on. The adventurers behind him hesitated, unsure if he still needed them. The party continued through the dark grove. They moved quickly together, destroying the attacking monsters along the way. Lex asked whether the monsters always attacked this aggressively at night, and he was told not exactly, since it was the first time he had faced such intense pressure. It was probably a mutation. A monkey-like monster screamed as it attacked him. The main character cut it into pieces, surprising the man. Ivan had said more monsters were attacking them than expected, so it would be faster if he cleared a path for them by burning the monsters. I even shouted for him to move forward. The boy tried to resist, but the man said they were only holding him back and told him not to wait because they would come from the other side. Once they found the baby, he said Lex should cast a strong spell into the air, and if they found her sooner, the magician would give a signal. Realizing there were so many monsters, he decided to split up and widen the search. Then he jumped up and agreed to go ahead. Using hellfire, he lit up everything around. Ivan froze in shock and said the man really could have done it alone. The boy kept using his magic, destroying monsters as he went, sweating and wondering where the girl was. A howl came from the thicket. Turning toward it, he tried to locate the sound. The pack had many members. If he follows one trail, he will most likely find the girl. It suddenly hit him what he'd found. It was only part of the pack, hunting together for something, so he moved quickly in that direction, sensing large monsters nearby. He felt someone's presence and saw a wounded girl hiding in the trees, and when he focused, he realized where she was. The adventurers could not explain what had happened. Broken tools lay on the ground. One archer was badly injured. The girl realized the monsters had broken through the barrier. If both the archer providing cover and the healer setting up the barrier are wounded, they will not last until we reach the city. The girl feared that even if they escaped now, someone still had to stay safe. She then lured the monsters with the torch's flame. Shouting to the others, she urged them to seize the chance and run. She would catch up with them, so they had to go on ahead. They told her they might not call anyone for help. The girl snorted and lowered her gaze. The city was a full day's journey, and even rushing the round trip would take 2 days. Holding out seemed impossible. Her comrades left as she watched. She must be held accountable for dragging them here by force. Involving the others was how she pursued her own goal. Facing the monsters, she screamed that she would not give up her life until she found the grass. After that, she focused only on surviving, running as fast as she could, determined to stay alive no matter what, as the monsters kept attacking and her face twisted in pain. Eventually, the girl collapsed, unable to run, and believed it was over because she was surrounded and had nowhere to go. A girl sat by a tree surrounded by monsters, her leg injured so she could not run, all her potions used up and she could not recover. The girl cringed and began to cry softly, asking everyone for forgiveness. Beside her, the black wolf howled fiercely. She thought they had come a long way and only a little remained. Dull-faced, she said she wanted to take her own life with her own hands, but her weapon was no longer usable. The monster could tear her to shreds at any moment, and she had wanted so much to become a real adventurer. Suddenly, the monster saw a bright flash like fireworks right above them. The girl stared in shock, not understanding what it was, and unable to believe monsters could do something like that. Then a voice cast a spell that sent homing ice spears. In a single instant, each wolf was struck by a powerful blow they could not shake off. The girl's mouth opened wide in surprise. The girl saw a man approaching and realized it was Lex. He held out his hand and said he had come to save her, and her face brightened. He examined her, said she was badly hurt, then took her hands and used ancient healing magic. Her breathing grew heavy and her face relaxed as the wounds slowly faded. The man stayed calm and told her he would finish quickly so she should wait inside. He deployed a reinforced barrier that formed a protective dome around the girl, and she did not understand why he was helping her. The boy slapped his chest and said all adventurers were comrades in a way. Helping each other came naturally. Turning away, he laughed, thinking he sounded just like Ivan. Stepping out to the snarling monsters, he told them to get ready. They had not left their territory willingly. The real enemy was the pack leader giving the orders, the one he had to defeat. He saw the main monster behind all the others. The protagonist began to examine the mutated monster. It was a grim omen of trouble. He could not believe such a creature had appeared naturally. In his past lives, no creatures like this had existed. Lex already thought these monsters were weak, and that even simple abilities seemed amazing, but this mutant would not bow. Confused, he had no idea what was happening. Then the leader howled, and he realized this was not the time to think. The pack of monsters started closing in on him. The protagonist said they probably thought attacking the girl would put him at a disadvantage. Judging them naive, he put up a magical barrier and dodged every attack. Attackers came at him from every direction. He dodged and struck at the same time. Every blow hit its mark. One of the monsters lunged toward the girl, hit the barrier and twisted from the impact, leaving her stunned. It made no sense to her. The man said the barrier was the strongest defensive magic, and as long as she stayed inside, it would easily repel attacks from those monsters. The girl couldn't understand how this was possible. Lex said everything was fine and he would drive them away. She shouldn't worry and should stay put. The girl asks him again as another monster tries to gnaw through her barrier. She realized he really worked. Lilara warned the boy to be careful of the black one because he was different from the others. The boy calmly replied that he knew everything. He thought she still despised him, but now she was worried about him. Despite their misunderstanding, she remained a good person. The boy focused, turned to the main monster, and said their ranks were thinning so he would join the fight himself. The other wolves began looking toward their leader. The pack leader growled again, and the others rushed to attack. The boy realized they were acting under the mutant's control, so there was no need to fight them. He then lunged at the leader. He tried to stab the wolf in the back, but the wolf defended itself with a spike on its back. The animal trembled from the tension. The protagonist realized he was strong. The mutant struck a blow that nearly overwhelmed the protagonist and lunged at him in a single furious movement. The girl screamed and cowered to the side. The protagonist caught the cutting spike with his bare hands. The sharp edges stopped a few centimeters from his face and the veins in his hands bulged. The mutant turned around, surprised. The girl was also confused. He checked his back and saw one of his spikes was missing. The wolf and Lilara cried out in surprise at the same time. The boy's hand trembled. He said he'd worked so hard on the sword that no one had the right to break it. His face darkened with anger. The girl was surprised he was angry about this. Charging like a dark shadow at the monster, he shouted he would answer for this, and the wolf had tears in his eyes from fear. Unsure how to react, the girl watched in silence as the mutant was struck from the side. The wolf, tail between his legs, tried to flee from the boy but refused to give up and broke off a second spike, grabbed it and swung again. With a single move, he destroyed the enemy. Landing just to the side of the fallen foe, he said his spike was very sharp. With the remaining wolves retreating from the battlefield, the boy thought they could not be pursued and told the girl hiding behind a tree that she could come out now. He asked if she was okay, but she could not answer. After he said he had defeated their leader, everyone ran away. Showing her the monster's head, he terrified her, then took her hand and said it was late so they should go back. The girl looked at him sadly. He did not know what was wrong or why she looked at him that way. Screaming, she asked why he had saved her. He calmly reminded her that adventurers help each other. She clenched her fist and said she meant it. She kept screaming, asking him why he had taken such a risk. He had come alone into the forest at night. The man tried to calm her, saying he was not alone. The girl ignored him and kept saying she had said many nasty things to him and had called him a fake, insulting him. He looked down, then said everything was fine now, and told her to calm down. Hugging her, he said he rushed to help when he heard she was in danger. Only them all. Lilara tried to tell him something, but the man interrupted her, saying that an adventurer does not abandon friends in trouble. He stroked her hair. He told her the great swordsman taught that a real man must rescue a girl in danger. She argued he was only a legend, but he said he wanted to be like that legendary adventurer. That's why he rushed to rescue her. Crying, the girl called him stupid. He saves people because he takes the legend literally. Her claim that someone like him was her idea of a true adventurer stunned the protagonist, and he could not understand why she began to cry during the conversation. Anxious, he looked around unsure how to comfort the crying girl when a voice behind said their Luki had made her cry, and that he had made her cry. Shocked, the man turned around. I told him it looked like he had saved the baby. Another man said it did not look like he had. She looked teary-eyed. He said he had done nothing. The protagonist couldn't understand why they were there. Ivan said others had seen him cast a signal spell. That's how they found them. The path he took was impossible to miss, and a rumble echoed across the whole area. They said you wouldn't lose him because it was hot in every sense, smiling sarcastically and sweating. The man realized what had happened. Ivan said they had been watching them for a long time. The man blushed at the realization, grabbed his head and felt terribly embarrassed. Ivan then asked if he would leave everything as it was, and the man repeated the question in surprise. Meanwhile, the girl kept crying, and he asked shyly whether his comrades would share their elder's wisdom and teach him magic to stop her tears. Calmly, they began to leave, saying they could go back, tired and seriously considering staying the night and leaving at dawn, but the guide did not want them to go. Ivan calmly replied that they were entrusting the baby to him, leaving the protagonist stunned and unable to understand why they were doing this to him. The man said he was eager to save the princess, so he must take full responsibility for accompanying her. The boy stayed silent and dejected. He realized they were really leaving. I hadn't asked him if it was safe inside that super barrier. After that, he wished them a good night and blushed. He said the old men were leaving to avoid interfering with the young man. The main character could only watch in shock and beg them to stay. The girl kept crying. Finally, she cried until dawn, and he, emotionally spent, brought her back to the city, where she fell asleep in his arms, worn out from crying. People walked the streets while the main character ate lunch with a smile, thinking the girl had been found. The misunderstandings were cleared, and the food tasted better when someone suddenly asked to join him. Lilara arrived. The man said she could join because it was lunchtime and all the seats were taken. Lilara replied that she did not want to join just for a free seat. She moved to the table and sat opposite him, then fell silent. The worried man asked what was wrong, saying the food would get cold. She said with enthusiasm that he was right. When the hot food touched her mouth, she stuck out her tongue and said it was hot. He realized she did not handle hot food well. He understood why she had waited for it to cool and regretted rushing her. So he extended his finger to the side, asked her permission, and then cast healing magic on her. He said it was all right now. The girl, embarrassed, thanked him. Men at the next table blushed and said that when it got that hot, you wanted something cold. The guy turned toward them and did not understand why they said that. He thought they were exaggerating. The blushing girl decided to start a conversation with him. After she got busy, she thanked him again for restoring things, then talked about yesterday's rescue. But he called it a trifle because he was an adventurer like her, and the girl was not satisfied with his answer. She jumped up and shouted that they hardly knew each other. Despite her rudeness, he still came to her aid. In the night forest of beast demons, adventurers never go beyond first class. This is no trifle. She considered him a fraud, the worst partner for avant-luiers, someone who had cheated his way up the ranks but could do nothing himself, and convinced herself she was right without knowing his real skills. He thought she had put a lot of hatred into the word, and guessed she might be a victim of people like that, so he decided to ask her if she had problems with them. Tears filled her eyes. The man realized with horror that he shouldn't have brought up the subject. She said it was a long time ago. She said she had been deceived by men posing as A-rank adventurers, nearly losing her life, and frowned while holding back tears. The protagonist was stunned that such people existed. Lilara said she was born in a village near the beast demon forest. The village was poor, but everyone had food and shelter. One day, news reached her that the adults feared the demons might spread to the village. The Adventurers Guild kept getting requests to cut down the forest. They only cleared the edges of large cities, and none of the clearings reached the nearby village, so the adults were always worried about the forest slowly moving closer. With a small sum of money, they asked the guild for help to slow the forest's advance. Lex realized with regret that adventurers would come even to a village far from the city. The girl said applying for rank B would cost a lot, but everyone chipped in and raised the needed money. They thought they could now slow the forest's advance. Everyone was happy, including her, even though she was small and did not understand anything. Those were the times. A monster the village had never seen attacked, injuring many. Everyone fled to the neighboring village, and her father was killed by it. She could barely contain her emotions as she told what happened. The remaining adults went to the Adventurers Guild to ask them to clear the forest of monsters, but no one answered, and the boy could not understand why. The monster that attacked the village was an A-rank monster. They could only collect enough rewards for a B-rank request in the village, but the troubles did not end there. Lex listened to the story with sadness. Those attacked by the monsters suddenly fell ill. The doctor said the monster's poison caused the illness. As a result, many villagers could no longer work. After losing her father, and with her mother unable to work, she thought it was the end, until those scoundrels came. Villagers begged them for help when strange monsters attacked their village and spread illness, and the adventurers called it an easy job because they were A-rank. The old man said they could not offer a rank A reward. Rank B was their limit. The man said he understood. He asked that the conversation be kept secret. They would take the job this once for a B-rank reward. The old man, tears in his eyes, said they were very kind and that there would be no second chance like this. They gave away the entire accumulated sum without a second thought, likely in a hurry because everyone wanted to believe the best. Hope was gone. The next morning, all the adventurers had left, taking the money and leaving the job unfinished. Villagers came to this guild and reported that adventurers had come to their village, asked those adventurers to deal with a monster, and then the adventurers ran off with the reward, so the villagers asked the guild for at least some help. The girl said she sincerely sympathized, but the guild was not responsible for tasks it did not mediate, and people were horrified by her words. Maybe those people knew no one had taken up their request. Maybe they were not adventurers at all. Now the village had no money, no work, nothing. They didn't know what to do. The girl heard people talking about how the fake adventurers had tricked them. My mother's older sister lived in the nearby village they had fled to, took care of them, and the girl is truly grateful to her for looking after her mother. As a child, she decided she had to cure her mother and all the villagers. She could not be returned, but the others could still be saved and live happily ever after. So she became an adventurer, earned money, obtain medicine, and gain strength to restore the village and become a true adventurer who can protect everyone. Lilia said it had been a long story. Holding the boy's hands, she thanked him for still being alive and felt very happy. Blushing, The protagonist said it was not worth thinking, but secretly he found her smile dazzling, so his answer came out awkward. They grew embarrassed, holding hands, so the girl pulled her hands back, waved to apologize for the sudden movement, and explained her hand was injured. He used healing magic again, apparently because the blood came from his nails digging into his palm when she had clenched her fist too tightly, and the girl did not understand how it happened. Apologizing again, she thought he was surprised, and the memories surfaced without thinking, so he saw they were so heavy she was hurting herself. He asked whether she had gone for the herb to get that medicine. The girl said it could be made into medicine to cure the disease. The question was the name of the disease that had struck down the villagers. The girl replied that the disease was called Arza. Shock hit the boy when he heard it. The herb really did help the disease, but a nagging feeling told him he had forgotten something. Then it dawned on him so strongly that his eyes widened and his mouth fell open. Confused, Lilara asked him again what was happening, and he said the disease could be cured even without grass, but she did not understand how. The boy said they had to move immediately and asked where the village next to theirs was. The girl said they had to go around the forest of beast demons and travel southeast for about 2 days. He said it was good she needed to leave now. She did not understand why because it was already noon. If they left now, they would reach the intermediate village only by nightfall. The man reached out confidently, told her not to worry, suggested they take a journey, and then they left the city. She asked why they had left town when the carts were on the other side. He said they did not need them and would leave together. The girl said that would make the trip take a whole week. He raised a finger and told her not to worry, that they would fly. That shocked her even more. The protagonist lifted her into his arms and got ready to go. After the boy cast the windwing spell, they rose high above the city. From high above, they could see the whole settlement they had been in. Amazed, she looked at what lay before her. Startled, the girl hugs the guy tightly, and he happily thinks it is very soft and smells nice. Confused by his thoughts, he decided he could not think about such things, and said they would cross the forest by air, so he needed her to show the way. The girl squeezed his head tighter and shouted that they were actually flying. Calmly, the man said it was the magic of flight, but Lilara insisted she was not talking about that. Panic rose when they started moving. The protagonist tried again to explain that it was the magic of flight that brought them in, but the girl began to cry. His attack magic destroys monsters instantly, and he can create powerful barriers, heal, and fly. She wanted to know who he was. Lex admitted he was only a B-rank adventurer, but the girl did not believe him. A bright flash carried them over the forest. They landed at the village entrance sometime later, and the girl said it was incredible that they had actually arrived. Smiling, the main character said they needed to go treat her mother. The girl, still incredulous, asked him again whether he could really treat her. Confidently, he said he could. The girl took his hand and they left. The girl went up to the wooden door, knocked, and said this was her home. When the woman opened it, she asked who had arrived at that time. Seeing the unexpected guest, she was very happy and said Lilara had not come for a long time. The girl was also glad to see him. I replied that she had not expected her to return. Her explanation was that she would not come back until she found a cure, and in the meantime she had only sent money and letters. The girl answered seriously that she had found someone. Stunned, the woman asked again if he was serious. The girl said he would cure everyone. The woman did not believe a child could do that. The girl confirmed she owed him her life. He is a skilled adventurer who single-handedly defeated a pack of powerful monsters. If he had not come to her aid, she would already have lost her life. Yet the woman still did not trust her words. Laughing, she said looks can be deceiving. Then her expression turned very menacing, and she hit the girl on the head, calling her awful. Lilara clutched her head and said it hurt a lot. The woman told her not to complain and said she should be glad it hurt, because if she wasn't there, she wouldn't even feel it. He figured it was better to stay quiet and not get involved in those situations. If you got involved carelessly, you could get into trouble. Turning to him, she said her daughter had caused him a lot of trouble, and he smiled, telling her not to worry. Alicia introduced herself, and Lex repeated her name. Then she bowed low and thanked him. The man was shocked. The woman, looking sad, said she was grateful he had protected their daughter. With an approving gesture, he said there was nothing wrong with it since she was his guildmate. Alicia asked whether that was true. The man asked to meet the girl's mother. He said Arza's illness could be cured without the herb. The woman remembered they had discussed it and realized she had completely forgotten because of the girl. She invited them inside. They entered a room with a small kitchen area and various tools. She said it felt a little cramped in there. Pointing to the door, she said her mother was here. Call the woman and tell her daughter has come back with her boyfriend. The boy and girl blushed with embarrassment. Alicia laughed and said she was just joking, then pushed them forward to enter, and on the bed lay Leah, the woman who had called her daughter, as the daughter ran quickly toward her, and the aunt asked them to wait while she lit the lamp. Lilara sat down beside her mother's bed with baskets, boxes, and a small heater around her. The man was quiet, taking it all in. Alicia said she felt awkward, but they were already cramped. The girl noticed her mother had lost weight again. Masha hugged the other person. The woman's face and hands were covered in black spots. Then the woman asked who the person was. Alicia said it was her younger sister and Liliara's mother, Mario. He could tell from everything that she had been fighting the disease for a long time. She had lost a lot of weight and all her energy, and the pale purple spots all over her skin were clear signs of arse disease. Once these spots cover a woman's body, she will succumb to the deadly poison and die. Meryl asked whether the man was her daughter's lover, and the protagonist felt embarrassed again. Quickly he said it wasn't like that, and that he was her friend, and the girl also shouted he was just a friend. A man introduced himself, saying Lilara had told him what happened, and that he had come to heal her, which shocked the woman. She cleared her throat, asked him again in disbelief, and called him very kind. The man thought this did not fit the reaction of a seriously ill patient, and realized it was more of a show for the audience. From the moment patients contract the disease until the end they suffer, yet she pretends everything is fine in front of her daughter. The girl turned to him with tears in her eyes and asked him to cure her mother. The women remained in dejected silence. The protagonist told them to rely on him. With their permission, he took her hands and used the ancient's healing, letting magic spread around them. Stunned, the girl and her aunts stared at what they saw. Maria, looking at her hands, could not believe what she saw. A man said she was now completely healthy. Healing of the Ancients is an all-powerful healing spell he created in a past life, after growing tired of inventing new medicines and spells to fight the poisons and diseases caused by monsters. That means it uses much more mana than other spells, but that is a fair price to pay for a cure-all. He exhaled and repeated that the treatment was successful. All the women in the room looked at him in shock. He couldn't make sense of what was happening. Everyone there was shaking. After a while, people across the area called out, asking if he had really finished everything. Villagers later gathered outside. His aunt, holding a drink, hugged him and asked if he was having fun. Never expecting the main character the girl brought to cure everyone instantly, she still can't believe it even after seeing it with her own eyes. The boy said something minor. Then, at Liliara's and the others' request, he treated all the sick villagers. At first, villagers looked confused and distrustful. When they saw Mario fully healed, everyone was stunned, immediately filled with trust, and joyful laughter filled the air. After the treatment ended, the former village chief arrived and announced a feast. That was what it all led to. The old man thanked him warmly for healing their families. He told everyone to celebrate their sleeping mighty youth, and to congratulate Lilara on finding a groom. The boy said sheepishly that the second was a misunderstanding. People said it was a great joy, urged a proper celebration, and could hardly believe their family could recover. Many happy people were around. Someone thanked the man. One child could finally walk on his own. Grandma said she did not think she could recover. Everything felt like a dream. The man thought everyone looked happy. It felt wonderful. When it grew dark, Lexa asked Lilara if she could sit beside him. It turned out she had been looking for him for some time. Yesterday, when asked how her mother was, the girl moved to sit next to him and said her mother had returned home with her aunt, since she had just recovered from an illness. He believed he had fully cured her and thought rest was unnecessary, but it took time to restore a body weakened by the disease, and she thanked him again. Laughing, she said she had only thanked him. He said not to worry, but she insisted that was not enough, that she owed him her life and he had saved all the villagers, so she should thank him. She said he had done so much for her that she could never repay him, but she still wanted to reward him because it would be unfair for him to keep giving her gifts. This era has many truly kind people. In his past life, he never imagined people could be this kind. The girl approached him and asked what had happened. He stepped back and said it was nothing like that. She laughed and said she would come back briefly. They sat together under the night sky. The former village elder said it was still an honor to host their savior. They placed food in front of the main character. The grandmother said the food was simple and told him to eat more. He thanked her and asked how she felt. She said she was fine because of him. To her, it felt as if the illness had never happened. The old man said this was true happiness. Thanks to the master, the village workers had regained strength. Once they could work, they would no longer burden the locals. When Lex asked again, the man said they were strangers to the locals because they came from another village. If not for the disease, this would not have happened. They were allowed to stay here by their grace. But when all the working men fell ill, they could not earn a decent living, and many in the village went into debt. His efforts have gotten everyone ready to get back to work, so those who borrowed money will pay it back, and those staying with relatives will earn money for their own home. A man asked about the house. The old man said it was wrong to take advantage of loved ones' goodwill. That's what people say. The elderly couple were prepared to stay here until they died. Even though everyone had finally recovered, the man felt they still longed for a homeland they could not return to. Lex smiled and decided to ask them something. A guy was walking down the street when a girl caught up to him and asked where he was going. He said he was going to the beast demon forest, so she offered to help him. As she hurried off, she asked him to wait for her a little. A few minutes later, she came back and apologized for being late. After changing into her combat suit, she suggested they move out. The man thought she seemed very eager and said there was nothing to help with. Saying he only wanted to widen the road a little, he watched Lilara look at him, bewildered, and realized she did not know about the road. He ran toward the fence and said it would be easier to show, then stood before the forest, made sure no one was nearby, and used hellfire, a bright flash lighting up the forest. From a distance, he waved to the girl and said he would make a road through the forest that way. The girl did not fully understand what he was doing. He shouted that she must never go ahead of him because it was dangerous. The girl was terrified and did not understand how he could use hellfire. Later, as they walked down the road, the girl asked how far he planned to go. He said it would take some time and that she could return first. The girl replied confidently that she disagreed. This forest is full of beast demons, so she must protect it to keep the monsters from surprising him. The protagonist agreed and said he would rely on her. The girl happily told him to leave it to her. Holding a broken sword in front of her, the girl said she would use it to watch his back. They both stared in shock at what had happened to her weapon. The girl froze. Lex said it looked broken. Lilara was furious. The man thought he had probably broken it when he saved her from the wolves. The girl didn't know what to do. So a man offered his sword. She asked if he really did not mind. He agreed, and she thanked him. Blushing, she told him again he could count on her. He again asked her to take care of him. They announced their arrival, and the girl froze when she saw her village, with countless buildings lying in ruins before them. She was confused, and did not understand why they were here. He said the former headman had told him there was a village here where they used to live. She still did not understand why he had come here deliberately. He said it was natural to want to return to their homeland now that everyone had finally recovered from their illnesses. He still believed he had to pave the way. Tears in her eyes, the girl wanted to tell him something. Suddenly they heard a terrible roar and her face twisted with fear. The man said seriously that he thought he was nearby. The stunned girl recognized the cry. It sounded exactly the same as before. The protagonist asked whether the monster was there. The girl confirmed, saying the monster attacked the village and infected her mother and others. It was the monster that took their home. He looked up and saw Venom Rex, a mutant standing before them like a Tyrannosaurus Rex with short front legs and a large muzzle. This dinosaur-like monster has a deadly poison, runs terrifyingly fast on two legs, and killed the most warriors. Neutralizing this poison requires either high-level priest magic or a high-ranking antidote. If treatment is delayed, the victim, like this village, will fall ill. This is an extremely dangerous monster. The girl's face tightened when she saw he was still there, and she rushed to attack. Lex called to her, but she told him not to interfere. The man believed she had no resistance to poison, so fighting was extremely reckless. He shouted for her to wait until he finished casting a poison protection spell, but she ignored him and ran toward the roaring monster. He hid her, but the girl slipped past him. A man tried to stop her. The monster's poison was not only in its claws, it attacked again, and the girl was terrified. Roaring, he launched another attack on her. The protagonist moved quickly toward them and told him to stop roaring. Launching into the air, he landed on the monster and kicked it, breaking one of the Rex's spikes. The protagonist cast a detox spell on the girl, told her he had done it, and the girl thanked him. At this rate, the girl will keep attacking recklessly. She needs to be taught how to fight this monster. Although he cast a detox spell, a head-on attack was dangerous. Then he jumped at the monster and showed how to defeat it. The monster kept screaming. The man explained that poison coated the needles in his hands, the claws on his front paws, and his tail. So you had to break those parts first and only then fight, and at that moment his blow knocked the monster to the ground. Venom Rex walks on 2 legs, so a broken leg will stop him from walking. Then the man struck one of the monster's paws hard. Attack with a spear from far away, or finish it with a bow or magic. This is the basic strategy for fighting the monster. The man smiled as he finished his explanation. The protagonist smiled and said that if you fight smart, everything is simple. The girl pointed at him in shock and asked where it was simple. Each step was extremely difficult. He replied that if the monster uses poison as a weapon, the easiest way is to neutralize it, and she agreed, but said it was better to finish it off quickly. He asked whether this was what she had been working so hard for, and the girl, with her head bowed, approached the hissing monster and grabbed the sword she held. After that, Lilara drove the knife into him. The protagonist shouted that he was still alive. She had to hit him again. Lilara did not understand why she did not feel she had taken revenge. She kept striking until the monster stopped growling. A man, breathing hard, approached the girl and said she had done a good job. She thanked him again. He said it was nothing and suggested they return to make the villagers happy. The village elder stared in disbelief, and the people around him looked across the village in shock. They realized this was the same monster from before. The elder said that not only had roads appeared in the forest, but the monster had also been defeated. The protagonist said Lilara had defeated the monster that caused them so much trouble. Looking down, the protagonist admitted that was not true and that Lilara had not defeated him. The man said cheerfully that she could restore the village with money from selling the monster parts, and the shocked villagers asked her if it was true. Unsure how to reply, the girl called the guy, and he told her it was her idea to heal people and return to the village. The money from selling monster parts will be used to rebuild the village. She realized that was why he had let her be the one to finish him off. The man laughed. Had he finished it off and given up the reward, it would have looked like a handout from an arrogant stranger. But Lilara, eager to return to the village, often finished off the monster. With the money she received, she began the restoration. She said she didn't even know how to thank him now. He said thanks were unnecessary. That reward was rightfully hers. The village chief said rebuilding the village would not be sustainable. He thanked the two, but no matter how much they rebuilt, the village remained surrounded by a forest of beast demons. Soon the forest will swallow them up again. They could be attacked by a monster like this and forced to leave their home again. Spreading his arms wide, the man said he had a plan and suggested setting up a station town here. The old man asked again, surprised. The man replied that the guild had begun building a highway to connect other villages to the city. Field camps drain both physical and spiritual strength, so if the beast demon forest had city stations, everyone would use them instead of expanding their camp. The elder asked again how they could become trees in the forest of demonic beasts. They lacked the money to hire the guild to cut them down. Lex said not to worry, and that if they set up a calm resting place in the dangerous forest, the guild itself would help protect it. It will be cheaper to protect an existing bus stop than to build a new one from scratch. The boy decided to restore the village first and consult the Adventurers Guild. Marisha had said she wanted to build a road through the forest of demonic dawns, so she would probably accept his proposal, and he asked the residents what they thought. He clenched his fist and asked if they wanted to go back and rebuild their home village. At first, the villagers were silent. One man spoke up and said he wanted to. Then the others joined in, saying they wanted to live here again and not leave their village anymore. They wanted to tell their ancestors they had returned here. They shouted happily that they would all live here together again. Smiling, the guy told the girl it was great, and seeing her downcast face, he thought she was angry. Suddenly, the girl turned to him. He reached out and called to her. She threw herself into his arms and thanked him. The man refused to accept that it had started again. Villagers urged her not to let him go. The frightened boy started to think about how they could stop him. The girl's mother worried she might soon become a grandmother. The man wanted them to stop. They had to stop their daughter and then make jokes. She thanked him, and he hugged her again until she cried and fell asleep. Local residents felt sad when the young man left and knew they would miss him. He said he could not keep taking advantage of the locals' hospitality indefinitely, and it was also necessary to discuss the recent incident in the station town with the guild's representatives. An important task remained, and he had to officially report to the guild leadership that he had completely exterminated the dangerous mutant during the last mission. Auntie asked Lex to stay a little longer because she, her sister, and every villager were grateful to him. The grandfather was especially upset by the boy's departure because he had to repay the remaining debt. Lex told his new friends not to worry about the debt and insisted that Grandpa and the rest of the community never think about it again. Although the locals' sincere affection warmed him, he realized deep down he remained a true adventurer and could not stay in one place for long because he wanted to explore the world. The young man smiled at his own words, likening his speech to the style of the great swordsman Raggard. The charming girl standing beside him said quietly that she would soon follow her companion's example and set off to wander far from her native home, surprising everyone and leaving the boy completely shocked. Lex looked into her eyes and gently asked if she was truly ready to leave again, since she had only just returned home, been reunited with loved ones, and found peace in her mother's arms. She had become a hostage to circumstances. Beyond the mental anguish, another problem remained. All her personal belongings were in the city of Hexi. Her hasty return broke off ties with friends because she did not even have time to say goodbye properly. Beyond the moral duty to correct past mistakes, another important aspect was that the girl clearly remembered she owed her companion. Standing at a loss, the young man voiced his view that the girl should stay with her family since her mother's health had improved significantly, and he suggested meeting his comrades in person to explain the reason for his girlfriend's disappearance. A mother's worry can push her to extreme measures, and that evening she approached a young man, anxious about her daughter's future, and earnestly asked him to go with her daughter on the journey. The young man listened closely to the woman's pleas and asked carefully if she felt confident enough to make such a responsible decision. The mother often made her daughter very anxious. Overwhelmed with gratitude for her restored health, the woman began to see life differently, and recognizing her past, she decided to let her daughter live her own life, freely choose her path, and make mistakes. The caring sister promised to visit her recovered relative regularly and take care of her. That allowed the woman to calmly send her daughter on a long journey, knowing that her loved ones would be there to support her in any difficult situation. The mother put her hand on the girl's shoulder and quietly asked for one thing. She asked that the girl sometimes make time to visit her parents' home. Above all, the mother wanted to free the girl from the heavy burden of responsibility that had been placed on her and give her the freedom to follow her own heart. With her doubts behind her and her choice final, the woman decided to entrust the young traveler to a reliable companion. At last, the woman told her beloved daughter Lilara that the man had agreed to accompany her on the road. Noticing the girl's excitement, the hero nodded and confidently suggested they set out right away, ready for the trials and opportunities ahead. Lex 10 Stub heard alarming sounds echoing through the city streets, and the boy anxiously wondered what had caused the commotion among the residents. Concentrating, the young man shouted to the villagers to take care of themselves, then took a deep breath, activated the wind's wings, and felt a powerful surge lift their bodies off the ground. The crowd froze as the boy rose rapidly into the air. No one had seen anything like it before, and the spectators stood silent, mouths and eyes wide with amazement. The woman pressed her hands to her chest, shocked by the sight, and went rigid, unable to believe her eyes, while the daughter cried that an ordinary adventurer could not repeat such a miracle of flight. Facing the gathered residents, the young man held out his hands in farewell and sincerely wished everyone well, happiness, and a successful journey. After a long flight, the heroes landed safely in the middle of a busy city block, their bodies trembling with fatigue, but every cell felt the joy of victory. Lex told his companion he would go straight to the Adventurers Guild's central headquarters to file a full report on the admission. Lilara said she would use the chance to visit old friends. She said she left the city quickly and quietly without telling anyone she planned a long journey. Friends likely felt lonely and sad, worried about her well-being, and with no idea why she had disappeared. The heroes exchanged warm farewells and promised to meet again soon. After a brief talk, the young people went their separate ways, turning to the tasks and worries waiting for them in the big city. The guild secretary said she would soon call the guild's senior advisor. Someone called out to the young man. Even Sam arrived, asked if it was too late to come at that hour, and then loudly told everyone the new recruit had returned. The man asked Lax if he had run off with the girl or if she had turned him down. The boy wondered why the conversation had started at all. People knew the young man and woman had met only a few days ago, but some were already inventing romantic stories, whispering as they watched them walk away together into the sunset. Roman was absent. The senior guild visor greeted Lex warmly and apologized for the wait. The woman said the young man was in perfect health. The boy stood before her, ready to tell of his recent fight with a dangerous enemy. She asked him to wait and invited him to follow her to the reception room first. Setting the mutant on the table, the young man reached for a special blade to melt it into a sword. Lex asked the guild's senior advisor to leave him the blade, and she agreed and told him to follow her to the reception room. She wondered why he had come. He was there to report the recent killing of a dangerous monster and talk about it. The guild found the offer very tempting, but it had several problems. The guild wants to help them build a station town, but struggles to organize reliable protection from aggressive beast-like monsters. If an enemy in a mobile monster approaches the city walls, it can be stopped so the guild can order the creature destroyed. The young man said the method was like a demon trap. She agreed, saying this would keep the monster tied to the village and make it easier to organize defenses. Small numbers of monsters are easy to deal with, but if their number exceeds a certain threshold, the task becomes much harder and requires substantial effort to destroy them. Only adventurers ranked B or higher can enter the forest home to demon-like beasts, so only experienced high-ranking adventurers can overcome its dangers and survive. This plan is not feasible as is and needs major revision to fit existing conditions. The senior guild advisor said adventurers are defined by their mobility and lack of ties to any place, so they cannot stay in one town for long. The boy remembered that the legendary adventurers were always on the move. He proposed installing a protective barrier over the station city. A protective magic barrier can be raised to reliably defend the city from monster attacks, and it will present no special difficulties. The woman said such an option was impossible, and Lex wanted to know why. The young man corrected the senior advisor and said they had enough mana to simply draw a magic circle for an unbreakable barrier. That removes the need to lure monsters for protection. She asked what the unbreakable barrier was because she had never heard of it before. The boy said the unbreakable barrier was a special spell that lasted indefinitely and drew its power from the surrounding mana. The spell protected large cities and seemed ordinary, but the advisor, on hearing this, insisted it was far from ordinary. Long-lost magic could sustain protection indefinitely by drawing energy from the environment. Intrigued by the idea of lost magic, Lex asked what it meant, and the woman looked offended. The lost magic was widely used in ancient civilizations, she said, but is now nearly forgotten. In rarity and prestige, it matches the magic of flight, which the young man possessed freely. The boy asked whether the lost item they found earlier was connected to the lost magic because the master in Togai had mentioned something similar. The woman confirmed the lost items were ancient and asked if the young man had such an artifact. Rather than offer more clarification, Lex kept silent and left the question unanswered. In either case, the unbreakable barrier spell is officially lost. She asked if he could activate the unbreakable barrier spell. When he answered yes, she was deeply amazed. Surprised, she asked where he had learned this magic, since even the specialists at the Royal Laboratory could not recreate it. Casually, the boy asked if it mattered. He said they could build a station city together in the demonic beast forest using the unbreakable barrier. She also wanted to know what resources were needed to build an indestructible barrier. The young man said a certain amount of special materials would be required, and she then asked for a more precise list of the necessary components. Drawing a magic circle requires special paints, a set of gems, and a monster core. The monster core is a special crystalline mineral that forms inside the bodies of very powerful monsters, storing vast mana and acting as a potent catalyst for magical rituals and spells. The woman explained that such a core is hard to obtain and cannot be made artificially without the help of a powerful magical monster. If the young man had applied earlier, the guild could have bought the required core at a capital auction, though its budget would likely not have covered the cost. The nearby lands held only weak monsters that could not form the needed core. The young man assured her that a suitable corpse would be found in the delivered mutant. A man entered and said a magic core had fallen from the dead mutant. The cannonball was exactly where the boy had said it would be. She wondered how he could have known beforehand. The boy said it should be obvious because strong monsters had cores, but she said it wasn't obvious at all. The guild's senior advisor asked what kinds of monsters he usually fought. The young man modestly called it his special adventurous instinct. Continuing the discussion, he asked whether they could use the mutant core to put up a protective barrier around Station Town. She decided she needed to contact the guild leaders immediately to agree on next steps. A few days later, the state and the Adventurers Guild decided to turn the village of Lilara into a full-fledged station town. Marisha served as the senior advisor to the Adventurers Guild in Hexi City. Subordinates summoned the guild's senior advisor, who met Lexan again, and she had invited him before. But this time there was a new reason for the meeting. However, she immediately assumed it was unusual and remarkable. The decision to build the station town in the middle of the Demon Beast Forest amazed her. Again, the woman thought of something completely incredible and beyond the ordinary. The solution was possible, and the Adventurers Guild had been working on a similar project for years. The woman remembered saying the guild had been working on a similar project for a long time, but lacked the mana needed. Misha thought the boy was making up stories and they could not have a meaningful conversation. He needed a magic stone, but such stones cost a fortune and are highly prized. A message from her subordinate surprised the woman and confirmed that the slain monster had a magic stone. Her goal was to find the mysterious boy who had uncovered why the monster had a magic stone and who knew the lost magical arts. Marisha said only one thing with complete confidence. It was better not to get into a conflict with a boy like him. The youth's actions greatly slowed the spread of the demonic beast forest they had watched passively for years, and he cut a main road through the dense forest. If the guild mishandles his work and makes him unhappy, he may leave their city for another settlement, or in the worst case, emigrate to another country. He will succeed easily wherever he goes with that strength. Given his abilities and potential, the guild should support the young hero's plan instead of trying to manipulate him for their own gain. Marisha was determined to do everything to bring the boy's proposal to life and make it available to the public. The young man accepted the woman's support gladly, and she said she would not refuse the plan as long as he met all the necessary conditions himself. If things go well, she will have a genuine chance to become the next guild leader, a well-deserved recognition of her initiative and competence. Lex hoped for productive cooperation and said goodbye politely. She asked whether the boy had a girlfriend. She thought it was natural and a bit funny to ask because the guy is charming and seems to have a great future ahead of him. The question was meaningless, but Marisha felt a strong urge to attract this promising man to her business. She walked up to him and casually asked whether he had any urgent business or commitments. The woman suggested they go to dinner together, but their conversation was suddenly interrupted when Lilara appeared and approached them with sparkling, interested eyes. She asked whether the negotiations were over, and the young man smiled as he said goodbye to Marisha. She was the girl he had saved the other day. They went to lunch, talked easily, and the mood was warm. The women looked at the couple in love and realized she had forgotten her career, wondered whether the young people would be able to marry, and sadly noted she had missed the chance to feel that happiness. The next day, the boys went to the Adventurers Guild. The secretary addressed the young man and formally told him his application to form a group was approved. She looked kindly at the young man and said the group now needed to choose a suitable name. The boy liked the name Jiro-kun suggested, Dragon Slayer Team, but he was too shy to say it aloud, so he decided to wait and left the group without an official name. He asked the secretary if they needed to name the group. She calmly said it was not formally necessary, but a catchy name would help the team's fame spread faster. Most teams picked names because word of mouth spread faster, but Lex avoided the limelight, thinking it wasn't the right path for everyone. The boy looked the secretary in the eye and firmly told her to leave their team without any name. The girl nodded and said she had no more questions. The guy's application to form a team was approved. Now they could take on quests reserved for teams of 2 or more, which remained closed to solo adventurers. A young man asked if the ban covered temporary groups. The secretary said temporary teams were often allowed those tasks, but especially important missions were given only to trusted permanent teams. The boys now had many more missions available, and they thanked the girl for her clear explanations and help. The secretary hoped the boy would succeed at his work, since the whole team was made up of experienced Class B adventurers. The boy himself had only recently been promoted to rank B, so calling the whole team experienced because of 2 fighters sounded odd. Higher expectations put a heavy burden on Lexus, but they were now officially a full-fledged team. A group of adventurers is a band of people who protect one another, share skills and knowledge, and rely on trust and strong friendship. Legend says the great swordsman Rhaegar realized he could not overcome the world's challenges alone, so he found loyal friends and achieved many great deeds with them. Lilara admitted it was her first time joining a fairly serious team, and she felt a little nervous. The boy asked with interest how true that was. Ivan Soun shouted that the lady had finally met her worthy gentleman. The man said it was surprising to see such a strong desire to go their own way, and he believed their urge to change was no coincidence. She was close to the newcomer everyone had heard about and probably owed her life to him. Indignant, the girl shouted that she had not fallen in love and that nothing like that had happened. By saving her life and the people of her village, Lex made her feel forever indebted to him. To repay the debt, Lilara joined the team and asked for an honest opinion about herself. The men teased the girl, saying she joined the team not to repay a debt, but because she secretly wanted to be near the hero. One of the men said their words were pure speculation. She remained indignant. The adventurers asked the newcomer to explain his true motives for joining the team. The young hero was happy because she was his girlfriend and battle companion, and they had shared many dangerous adventures. The answer completely surprised the assembled adventurers. Marisha asked playfully whether the young man liked the girls who kept clinging to him and trying to get his attention. Even so, he was determined to become a real adventurer. The man asked Lilara-san to do her best on their shared path, and she was very pleased. She smiled broadly, clearly eager for the adventures ahead. Feeling her excitement, the young man reached out and gently pulled her close, holding her hand tightly. With encouraging glances, they rushed into adventure, eager to dive into a world of new challenges and discoveries. The young man called Lilara over. The girl hurled the spear at lightning speed, hit the target dead center, and the wolf collapsed from the powerful blow. The girl sighed freely, feeling pride and satisfaction. The blade's unusual sharpness surprised Lilara as it came at her. The boy warned they were under attack again, but quickly defeated the wolf. Suddenly they were surrounded by a pack of hungry gray wolves, shadows appearing out of nowhere and closing in tighter. Earlier on a street in Hexi, a group of young travelers walked along, chatting enthusiastically. The young man asked if his comrades would mind, but the girl, absorbed in finding a cure for Alza, never found a permanent group. Once again she left her comrades and continued alone, driven only to save Alza. Lex said everything was fine then. Rather than travel alone, the young man formed his own team and sought B-rank friends. The girl will no longer need to worry about repaying the debt. Today's team mission was to conquer the wolf blade on the highway. The boy had just defeated the mutants, but the threat still haunted people. Realizing the wolves had escaped the mutants' control, the young man thought they were now looking for a new place. This time the girl will not go alone, and the situation will be different. She hadn't checked whether she had a weapon. Lilara lost her weapon right after the hack during the mutant attack. She had to get a new weapon. She stepped into the store and asked if anyone was inside. The samples were not good enough for real battles, and Master Gordov's weapons from Toge were much more reliable and efficient. He refused to compromise because the weapon's quality was crucial, and he preferred to make it himself. He visited the blacksmith in the shop. Lex said he wanted to start making his own weapons and open a rental workshop, which surprised the man working there. You thanked them for their help and offered the wolf blade and 100 gold coins as a reward. The blacksmith froze, unable to believe his eyes at such a generous gift. The man said the young man could use the workshop as long as he needed. The young man thanked the owner gratefully, and the girl wondered why Lex needed to stay in the forge. After the master gave permission, Lexi immediately began crafting a new weapon, which greatly surprised his companion. At first, he asked if the girl had once been a swordswoman, noting she used a broken sword. Using a broken sword because she had no money didn't make her a good swordswoman. Needing to send money to her aunt, Lilara bought swords at the lowest price, since they were a common weapon that was convenient and easy to use. The young man doubted the wisdom of using cheap weapons, but he knew they would sharpen his combat skills and instincts needed to advance in rank. Unable to fix the situation quickly, and knowing the wrong weapon would be dangerous, Lex suggested finding a suitable weapon for the girl. They tried a huge two-handed sword, but it was so heavy the girl could not carry it. The bow was the next test, but it failed to meet expectations and did not achieve the desired result. Next, they tried a heavy mace, but it proved useless and failed to meet the girl's requirements. The girl grew despondent, losing hope that any weapon would be suitable. The young man suggested they test the spear. Lifting the spear with ease and confidence, she felt it was exactly what she needed. The spear proved far more convenient and easier to use than Lilara had first thought. A spear delivers more force than a sword because its long handle keeps an opponent at a distance and lets you aim more accurately. He and the blacksmith agreed to start making a spear right away, especially for the lady. The girl said there was no need to go into such detail because what she had already bought would be enough for her. She should have picked a weapon that suited her skills and abilities. The young man said the claim that a strong warrior can manage with any weapon is a myth. Low-quality equipment can greatly reduce a fighter's effectiveness. Once they decided, they immediately began making suitable weapons. Use a small, sturdy blade to make the spearhead. The girl asked them not to waste expensive materials on her weapon and to wait a little, but the young man firmly refused. A young man skillfully carved the body core from the killer plant's wood and strengthened it with a hardening substance pulled from an ancient dragon's scales, giving it extra hardness and resistance to damage. The boy said something very confusing to Lilara, then smiled and told her he wasn't saying anything complicated. He coated the metal fittings with a compound infused with venom from a rare poisonous viper. The girl screamed that it was an incredibly valuable material she had never heard of. The young man calmly said it was ordinary. The spear's design included features that made it stiffer, resisted bending and corrosion, and kept the blade sharp. She couldn't understand the words, but sensed the weapon being forged had special properties. The young man finished forging it. Liliara's spear was ready, and the smiling boy asked her to enjoy the new weapon and to test it in action. The new weapon made her hesitate to touch it because it looked both beautiful and frightening and filled her with awe. This was not caused by magic, but by the high quality of its materials and craftsmanship. Drawing on his knowledge and rare ingredients, the boy learned to craft magical weapons on his own, giving them special properties that could change the outcome of the battle. Surprised by his skill, she wondered who he really was. He claimed to be an ordinary villager, or rather an adventurer. She found that strange. She shouted that no ordinary adventurer could become B rank in a month or have such outstanding skills. Anger rose in the girl and filled every cell of her body, but when she tried to hold it back, irritation burst out in short, sharp breaths. The boy stood stunned by her words, frozen and staring at the student with wide, confused eyes. Everyone in his village had those skills, so it was an unusual place full of secrets and wonders. He believed many others had the same talents and opportunities he had. Lex asked, surprised if the girl was telling the truth. The young man recognized Lilara as a genuine self-taught master because she had never had a teacher. To become truly independent, he was taught to handle every task on his own. No one could teach her this. The team met regularly with veteran adventurers to train and share experiences. At last, the boy understood why Lilara struggled. No real teacher had taught her basic skills and knowledge, so she had to rely on her own strength and intuition. Self-study inevitably causes a loss of fundamental principles, which is very sad. The student has valuable qualities and potential, but a lack of basic knowledge prevents her from showing her full talent and achieving real success. He unexpectedly decided to teach the girl the skills and knowledge she needed, and she was completely surprised to realize their conversation had made her understand. He explained that Lilara could not use restoration and strengthening magic at the same time because she had trained earlier as a swordswoman. To become a first-class adventurer, she had to master the magic he explained. He also knew someone who could use two magics at the same time. The boy asked her to trust him, saying he would help her through her difficulties. She took a deep breath, looked at him carefully, paused briefly, and then nodded slowly to accept his help. Realizing that by following the boy's example, she would gain strength and confidence. Recognizing this, she chose to join him to reach new heights and fulfill her potential. Liliola looked the young man in the eye and said firmly that she accepted his offer to be her master, a choice that began a new phase in her life, bringing challenges and opportunities and opening the path to true mastery and the development of her skills. She asked him to teach her to fight. He accepted her request readily, and they soon formed a special bond, becoming a strong fighting team and taking on the roles of teacher and student, which gave their lives new meaning and shared goals. Inspired by his students' success, the master decided to make a unique weapon for himself and used the remaining rare materials to forge an unusual sword with an elegant design and superior qualities. Armed with a powerful new blade, Liliela set out confidently to find adventure. The weapon gave her confidence and made her stronger and bolder. She and her teacher explored unknown lands, faced trials, and defeated enemies. During the campaign, she learned to use her new weapon wisely, despite fear and uncertainty. And after early trouble controlling its power, she mastered it and used it effectively in combat. Guided by an experienced master, the Venetian woman mastered spear fencing with such dexterity and grace that it seemed fate had made her an expert in this ancient art. The young man only passed on to the girl the knowledge and skills his friend had taught him. As a teacher, he proved fairly mediocre and offered nothing fundamentally new or original. Root Rukusosu was the technique of the Heavenly Dragon Emperor. Smiling, the girl said the name sounded clumsy and pretentious, as if it overstated the technology's importance. With both now skilled in the spear technique, they decided to return home. The journey was a success, leaving them with new skills and an unforgettable experience. The forest has a magical barrier that keeps outside threats away, but dangers inside remain, so do not stay there long and leave in time. The young man said excitedly that they had done it and would return. They headed for the mysterious heart of the demon beast forest. Pale, she asked again whether she had heard correctly that the journey's destination was the heart of the demonic beast forest. Gravely, the teacher confirmed that their goal was the heart of the demonic beast forest. The master said it made more sense to set out from the center of the demonic beast forest, because from there, travel to the surrounding cities and villages was easier, and the group could reach their destination faster, saving time and resources. Lex said he wanted to go to the center after hearing Mr. Ivan's stories, and the idea of exploring it appealed to him because of its romance and sense of adventure. Swallowing nervously and trying to hide her anxiety, she nodded slightly to confirm they were going to a very dangerous facility, her face turning sickly pale and showing her fear of the upcoming test. Lilial yelled that he had completely forgotten to ask her opinion. The girl grabbed the guy tightly and demanded to know why they had to fly instead of staying on the ground. The master explained patiently that since the new weapon had already been tested, there was no point in going on foot, and flying would be much faster, saving a lot of time and effort. The forest's center was a secret area closed to most, but many brave adventurers tried to enter it, persuading those in charge to let them in and promising great discoveries and glory. The magical forest of Magver kept expanding, taking over the surrounding land, and people in nearby settlements lived in constant worry and curiosity about what was happening deep in the forest. Ivan-san said adventurers were searching the forest to uncover the truth because they suspected hidden treasure. Many believed something extremely valuable lay at its center, either magical energy or material wealth that could change the fate of many people. Worried about how much longer she had to stay in the air, the girl felt physically and mentally drained and wanted to reach her destination and rest. He suggested they stop and rest because the long flight had left them exhausted, and a short break would help them recover and prepare for the rest of the journey. Lex focused and pushed his poem forward. A second later, a thin column of bright fire sprang from his hand, lighting the space with a soft flicker. The flame moved with his breathing, gave off a pleasant warmth, and made the room feel cozy and relaxed. Liliala stepped onto solid ground and sighed with relief, smiling as she finally rested after the long flight. The fatigue slowly faded, leaving her calm and comfortable. The girl felt genuinely happy to be back on the solid ground she loved. To protect their camp, the boy had wisely put up a barrier to keep them safe if something unexpected happened. Although it was not yet lunchtime, The young man suggested they take a break to rest and regain strength before continuing their journey, so they could recover from the intense flight and keep their spirits up. The young man laid a soft blanket on the grass and carefully arranged a variety of foods on it. The spread looked beautiful and appetizing, with fresh fruit and other treats prepared for a pleasant picnic. The student sat down beside him, staring at the treat in amazement as a surprisingly large amount of food came from the small bag, and her eyes sparkled with pleasure at the thought of a tasty, filling snack. The boy laughed and explained that the magic bag could hold far more than its outside suggested. After offering to warm up together with a cup of hot tea and a tasty lunch, the young man invited the girl to sit down and relax. Hot tea and a good lunch are the best way to regain strength after a long journey and hard physical work, he added. The warmth of the drink and tasty food ease fatigue and restore energy for what comes next. They settled in and began to enjoy the meal. Lilara thanked the young man for his care and attention, saying the pleasant rest left her refreshed and ready to continue the journey. She admitted it was nice to have a warm drink on long journeys. The young man smiled and said it was easy. A small spell could heat water and cook food. Those small comforts made the journey easier and more pleasant. The man emphasized that spark magic is one of the most common techniques for novice magicians, and almost everyone can make a small spark that could start a fire. The girl said magicians conserve their magical energy, so they rarely use it for simple household needs like cooking or heating. They usually stick to traditional methods and save magic for more important purposes. The teacher was impressed by that attitude and noted that the mana costs for such minor spells were minimal. That mages conserved even such small resources showed the discipline and thrift the profession was famous for. The master decided to follow the example of veteran magicians and announced he would conserve mana from now on. The student smiled indulgently and said it was too soon to worry about saving energy because he still had plenty. Lilara asked how long until they arrived. Lex said they were about 2 hours away and added that the trees grew much taller near the forest center, so the place would be easy to spot. Both members of the expedition were equally intrigued by what lay at the center of the forest. Curiosity tormented the girl, while the master was captivated by the chance to solve the age-old mystery. The sense that they were nearing an answer filled them with anticipation and excitement. After eating and regaining strength, the heroes set off again. The student reluctantly agreed to continue the air journey, though the thought of another flight left her uneasy and irritated. Weak in her legs and tormented by feelings of inferiority, the girl timidly asked the young man to listen to her. Lilara asked in a trembling voice whether he realized he was holding a real princess, blushing slightly. Noticing her excitement, the man suggested moving a different way, but she firmly refused and insisted on the original option. The young man understood the princess's feelings and chose to leave things as they were. Seeing her up close brought him joy, calmed him, and gave him hope for the future. Soon they realized they were close to the center of the forest. A gigantic tree stood before them, visible from afar. Everything indicated this tree was the center they were looking for. At last, they reached the forest's depths, where a huge tree spread its branches for hundreds of meters and towered before them like a colossal natural monument, and an atmosphere of silence and grandeur filled the place with ancient secrets. A huge tree, about 40 meters high, filled them with admiration and respect. Deciding to take a closer look, the heroes descended and landed a short distance from the tree. The master concentrated and recited the activation formula for one of his most powerful spells, Prime Inferno, and a surge of magical energy flowed from his hands, lighting the area and forming a huge circle of protective symbols around the group. The Prime Inferno spell was designed to destroy plant life across large areas. The girl warned this magic is meant to destroy large numbers of trees, not monsters. Using it on living beings is strictly forbidden because the consequences would be unpredictable and destructive. In his home village, people used this magic to clear unwanted vegetation. The spell quickly and efficiently destroyed thickets, making room for fields and pastures. My father said the inhabitants once managed without magic, working the fields by hand or with animals. Later, as magical science developed, spells were created that made clearing the land easier. The young man was lost in thought, wondering if repeated use of a powerful spell had changed his body and abilities, and if that magic had built his unusual stamina and endurance. The master always believed each village had its own way of using magic, but its true nature proved far deeper and more complex than he had expected. The center of the forest rose before them, a giant tree taller than any they'd seen. Sensing the moment, the heroes moved deeper into the mysterious space and now faced the task of exploring the central zone. A killer plant moved nearby, though it was famous for being immobile and for having bark stronger than metal. The killer plant had sharp leaves at the tips of its branches that it shed at the slightest movement or irritation like knife blades, so the heroes realized they had to move here with extreme caution. The girl doubted the confrontation would succeed, saying it was almost impossible to avoid cuts from the sharp leaves, so it was wiser to move away immediately to save strength and health for the next stages of the journey. Smiling with steady confidence, the young man said her unique spear would guarantee victory over the monster, and the spear's design let the team eliminate threats easily, giving them an advantage and safe passage through dangerous areas. Though the metal-like leaves were extremely strong, the situation changed in an instant when the students looked at another tree and one girl was overcome with shock. So she reacted at once, throwing herself to the side to dodge danger and instinctively save her comrade. Tensing every muscle, the girl put all her strength into the spear, which struck a giant tree and split it in two. The tree fell and kicked up a cloud of dust, proving the weapon's power. The master cast a strong magical shield over Lilara, assuring her she would remain safe even if the fiercest dragon attacked, reducing the risk and increasing the mission's chance of success. The young man reassured the girl that intensive training and hard-earned skills had prepared her to face any threat, and she said she would never let herself be defeated, calling defeat unacceptable. The master always supported Liliela's successes, praised her efforts, and tracked her progress, and each girl's achievement gave him sincere joy because her development showed how effective his teaching and his qualities as a mentor were. She knew her movements would seem awkward and clumsy at first, but regular practice and training would give her the flexibility and precision to perfect her skills. The young man noticed that when a student learned quickly, the teacher wanted to test himself, so to support her enthusiasm, he joined in and fought side by side, and working together they both developed skills and learned from each other. Assessing the situation quickly, he struck cleanly and powerfully, cutting through the branches of a massive tree in one swing. The branches crashed to the ground, kicking up clouds of dust and proving the fighter's strength and agility. The girl assumed the young man had enchanted his weapon, allowing him to deliver such a powerful blow, and thought the strike would have been impossible without that help. Lost in the master's methods and secrets, she missed the danger as the ground beneath her feet began to shake with alarming sounds, and she instinctively grabbed the spear's handle to brace for a possible attack. Noticing Liliela's fear, the boy quickly explained that this was not an ordinary earthquake. The giant elder planta trees were in extreme stress and panic after strangers entered, and feeling threatened, they became active, causing ground vibrations and noises like an earthquake. The heroes found something far more dangerous and aggressive than they expected. Their arrival disturbed the forest and triggered a response from the whole ecosystem. They needed to quickly plan a defense and find the danger's source. Startled by the sudden change, the young man scooped up the girl and shot into the air as the ground shook. Trees swayed and roots ripped up the earth, threatening to swallow them forever. The ground beneath them cracked, and huge chunks of earth flew at the heroes like projectiles, while gusts stirred up debris that made movement difficult and raised the danger, so they had to act quickly and decisively to avoid harm. Fear froze him, but the calm young man pointed out the main point. The forest's owner showed clear displeasure at the uninvited guests. It was time to meet the forest's chief guardian face to face. The scent plant, the lord of the forest, stepped forward majestically, showing his dominance and superiority. Tall and clad in green bark, he radiated ancient wisdom and strength as mist swirled around his roots, highlighting his mystery and connection to nature. The girl could not believe this ancient plant existed and doubted the myth until one day she saw with her own eyes an amazing tree appear right in front of her. A legendary S-rank monster that even the most experienced hunters feared, the living forest could absorb all living things within a radius of many kilometers, leaving only emptiness and silence. Looking at the boy carefully, she gently asked why he was so concerned about the issue, what had made him think about it, and whether he wanted to share his thoughts. Lex said she had never heard of monsters ranked that high before. Ella said this wasn't what she was talking about at all. She wondered why the forest had become so large if the Lord of the Forests and Beasts held such a high rank. The master believed everything was just like this. This ancient plant demon, known as the King of the Forest, spawns many monsters from the fruits of its magical tree. The young man recognized it from his past life when he fought the ancient plant as a hero, yet he had never heard of a forest this massive appearing. He had never seen an ancient plant before. It had so many abilities. This was bad because the monster was starting to get out of control, and it had to be reported to the guild immediately. Still, he wanted to seize a unique opportunity. The ancient plant could move its roots like legs, and if it tried to escape, it would follow them all the way to the city, though those so-called legs moved extremely slowly. Though the plant moved slowly, its roots were so long that it covered ground about 10 times faster than a horse. They moved to intercept him. The boy said it easily, but the tree was truly enormous. Fire magic could burn it, but the boy lacked the materials, so he decided it would be a waste of time and chose to handle it himself with his sword. She cried out that it was completely impossible. She asked to be lowered to the ground. The master kept asking the student not to leave, but she continued to scream. Confidently, he said he would quickly finish the fight with the tree. Lex launched a physical attack. He then activated the Hydro ability, Hydro Fence, Special Trade, and Weapon Enhancement abilities successfully. A root struck his face, and Ella shouted for him to run away right away. Avoiding that attack was unnecessary for him. Forged from a mutant fang, the master's sentient sword could fight mid-level enemies, and with that advantage he attacked the tree decisively. The sword's material proved strong and flexible enough to fight the monster effectively. He paused briefly to think about what the word soft meant. The girl asked what had happened. Pale, the young man realized he had damaged the material and effectively destroyed it. They will now be very careful with the remaining material. It seems the monsters have finally seen the guys as enemies. It was too late. The monsters had become easy prey for this couple. The girl asked not to be pulled into the situation, but the master said they shared the same goal. Charging to attack, the young man activated the skill Oblique Beam. Quickly, he cut through the tree's roots, astonishing his student. The master kept striking the tree quickly, not giving it any rest. Lex reached forward and exhaled after the attack. This was the simplest way to remove large specimens. Meanwhile, Lilara screamed, begging him not to involve her because she had never seen anything like it. As a swordsman, the master rarely displayed his magic, so she had few chances to witness it. He was confident she would see many more such displays in the future. There are few wizards, and that had nothing to do with what she was saying. The boy suggested they end it immediately. The monsters may have no strength left to attack the boys and are now trying to rip the bark off the tree and fling it away. Such behavior is highly unusual. Monsters only do this when they are in a hopeless situation. The master seems to have forgotten this important fact. This would be much easier if the monsters believed this was a convenient way to strip the bark off the tree, but if they tried, the boy would inevitably die. As long as no one hits it, nothing bad will happen. He warned Lilara not to leave his side, saying even a small piece of the tree trunk could come loose and strike her, causing serious injury. The girl shouted back that she was not going anywhere. With nothing to worry about behind him, the boy moved boldly to attack the monster. The master dodged the attacks and kept striking at the roots. Relentlessly, he struck blow after blow, not letting the monster catch its breath. The sword's repeated strikes carved a vacuum in the air, and the boy was about to bring the tree down with one powerful strike. Using all his strength and skill, the master delivered a crushing blow to the roots. A huge monster crashed to the ground with a deafening roar. The boy won this battle more easily than he had in a long time. The student could hardly believe he had defeated an S-rank monster. To him, it felt like chopping ordinary wood, except real wood does not attack people. He drew the monster parts into the magic bag. Lilara assumed the magical bag held many interesting items. The bag's capacity depends on how accurate the initial magic formula was. This bag can hold an enormous number of items, about as many as a whole mountain. With better materials, the craftsman could have made a bag with even greater capacity. The girl wanted one too, and asked for it. He said he would make her a bag like that next time, since it would only take him moments. Both concluded the plant would survive the incident with little damage. The boys just needed to clear the area. Then they could go home calmly. The girl had enough adventure for one day and looked forward to going home. In the past few days, she had experienced more astonishing events than in all her earlier life. Even more surprising was that such a huge monster had calmly settled in the middle of the forest. The student said that if such a huge monster lived deep in the forest, it was unlikely any valuable treasures would be found there. They planned to tidy the area, first clear the land, and then fill the large hole that had formed. Pressing his palms to the ground, the young man asked the girl to wait. Lex unleashed earthquake magic. Lily. Ella hit the ground again, shaken by another jolt. The boy was leveling the ground with an artificial earthquake. The ancient plant's roots dug deep into the ground and left cavities, and when the soil filled those voids, it caused shaking like a strong earthquake. She realized that since the ground was shaking so noticeably, it was like a real earthquake. An egg suddenly appeared on the earth's surface. The master hurried to find out what this find was. He found strange white lumps of unknown origin there. Lex scanned the area for traces of the white lumps, but they were already hidden underground. An egg suddenly appeared on the surface of the earth. The boys grabbed the egg on instinct, not knowing what it was. In a forest of magical creatures, the egg itself could be a unique creature. If this is truly a monster egg, break it now while you still can. Spinning, the egg drew the children's attention. Confused, the girl stared at the egg, not understanding what was happening. The egg seemed ready to hatch. If it was a newborn, there was little to worry about. Dragons usually attack right after hatching, but their eggs are much larger. The boy was sure this egg belonged to a different kind of demon. The demon seems to have extraordinary powers. The eggshell gives strong protection to the creature inside, and it often takes time before it cracks and the baby emerges. The master predicts this monster will grow into an incredibly powerful creature. The young man gently asked Ella to move aside. A small, fluffy bundle hatched from the egg and looked adorable beside the girl. That monster looked irresistibly cute and attractive. The little monster looked like a soft, woolen stuffed sheep, but one boy was sure it was alive, and the other boys did not know what to do with it next. Born so close to the heart of the forest, the baby was likely to become a dangerous monster, so the young man knew he had to act immediately before the baby grew stronger. The kid didn't seem threatening at all. Instead, he was calm and at ease. The boy had never seen anything like it before. The little monster stumbled and fell to the ground. When the monster came closer, the boys saw that everything was in perfect order. Maybe the baby thought they were his parents. Some demons behave like birds that take the first creature they see as their parent, and specialists raise and study them. The kid was playing with the boy's leg, and the boy thought it might not be a dangerous demon and should be watched more closely. The guys ended up accepting the monster. If he learns from childhood not to attack others, he will have no problems later. The kid had become noticeably more aggressive than before. Lex picked him up and asked where it would be and what could have happened. He suddenly bit the boy's finger, and the girl fell silent, lost in thought. The kid thought the guy would make a suitable snack. The reason was different. His bites were too weak to matter. If this is a real attack, the baby clearly will not survive the harsh forest full of monsters. The truth was likely simple. He was trying to satisfy his hunger. He suddenly realized he didn't know what a baby demon ate, saw two meaty cannibals, and suggested a small feast. He said he would start making dinner now and politely asked to wait a minute or two. The master attacked, catching the monster off guard and leaving it stunned. He attacked the huge bears. The baby was terrified by what was happening. The young man offered food to the monster, and the girl angrily said that they would eat the bears themselves. He apologized to the monster for scaring it and offered to try bear meat. The cracks woke him and reminded him he was a superior being, born on this earth and destined to rule the world. Born instinctively aware of his destiny, the king of all beasts and a formidable predator came into the world to claim his place as a supreme being. The monster heard voices, not those of his fellow tribesmen, but of potential prey. Born lucky, he was fed at once, a direct confirmation that this creature was a true ruler. He stood ready to sacrifice everything, even the heavens, to prove his birth was no accident. The air smelled faintly burnt, but the breeze brought a pleasant scent. Newly awakened, the creature already knew it was a predator, and its body trembled with a raw hunting instinct. A strong tremor shook him and made it hard to move, but he thought it was natural and not worth worrying about. No object could resist his powerful fangs, and nothing could survive the strikes of his sharp claws. The first victim was honored to replenish his flesh and blood. Attempting to bite the man's leg, he found he couldn't bite through the fabric. Completely bewildered, the creature could not believe what was happening. The monster didn't understand what was happening to his body, but he sensed incredibly powerful prey nearby. Facing so many strong opponents at once could cause big problems for the team. Completely confused, the boy could not understand the young man's intentions. The master struck the bears with crushing force, cutting them down in a single sweep. The monster froze, staring at what was happening. The monster could not believe his eyes as all the nearby monsters vanished at once, felled by a single powerful blow from the boy, who then offered the baby some tasty food. The baby realized he was in some kind of disaster and was so stressed he nearly burst into tears. A man arrived at the guild to hand over the demonic material for evaluation, and an employee suggested placing it on a special table, but the specimen was too large, so the secretary said it could be delivered to a special dismantling site. Lex noted the monster was too big even for the demolition site. The woman said in surprise that the guys had actually managed to defeat such a huge demon. Unable to move the ancient plant to the guild, they called the organization's assistant leader, and the secretary explained the situation in detail, leaving the listener astonished by the scale of the event. He turned out to be a VIP known to Mr. Lex, famed for building roads in the demon forest, and that frightened him. Mirasha apologized to the important guest for the staff's lack of preparation. The guest's hall was enormous. She knew they planned to sell the demonic materials, so she quickly organized a specific process to evaluate and sell those materials. A young man said he had personally dealt with a class-ass Naga monster in the heart of the forest, and the woman listened, amazed. The guild's chief advisor assumed she had misheard, but the boy firmly confirmed what he had said, and Marisha was visibly shocked. The woman was stunned and kept repeating what the boy had said, unable to believe it. The others, hearing the conversation, echoed his words, amazed by the story. The woman asked the young man if he was sure about his claim. Lilara backed him up, saying she stood beside him during the battle. As an official member of the group, she witnessed this. The guild's chief advisor wanted to know how they had reached the center of the forest. It turned out they had made their way through the air. The woman pushed thoughts about the difficult path aside and asked to be shown the defeated monster. The man said the monster was too big, and they would have to leave the city. Marisha promised to call in dismantling specialists. Everyone there was stunned by the size of the defeated giant, which had once been a huge tree. The famous ancient plant was called the Living Forest. Marisha-san and Liliela's sons agreed completely. In a past life, the hero had been a demon who bred vast stands of giant weeds. He turned to the boss and asked him to evaluate the find. After the guild chief advisor approved, the specialist began dismantling it. The workers were stunned, unable to believe that such a huge tree actually existed. The workers' blades dulled and broke, barely scratching the wood's surface, and the young man said the monster's bark was harder than any steel and could not be cut with ordinary weapons, leaving Marisha deeply shocked. At first, she dismissed stories about ordinary tree bark's super strength as a mere legend, but now faced with reality, she realized ordinary steel is powerless against that bark. The woman pressed Lex about how he had handled the tree. He admitted he used a special weapon and strengthening magic. Still unconvinced, she demanded an explanation, and Lex patiently repeated his account. The young man regretted not enchanting his tools for extra strength beforehand, because it would have saved a lot of effort and time. The worker was amazed at how easily the tool cut the material, as if it were slicing through slime despite the hard bark. The worker could now cut the massive trunk with little effort. The guild's chief advisor noted there was still too much material. The advisor recommended leaving some of the material outside the city under guard and auctioning the rest. The young man asked whether she had been at the auction where he had defeated the green dragon. The boy's words shocked the woman again, and he added that the green dragon's rank was low. Risha chose not to go into details and decided to auction only high-quality goods. If the young man agreed, the guild's chief advisor promised to send a messenger to the capital at once. The young man accepted, and Lily Ellis spoke hesitantly, unsure she belonged on the team because others had doubts. The man could not believe what he heard. They had been teammates for years, and she would soon be able to defeat such monsters, but she assumed he was just trying to cheer her up. Lex said she would become stronger, and the girl took her word seriously. Together, they went to see what was happening. The worker had never seen a stone that large before and wondered how much the material was worth. Lilara and Marisha admitted that in the guild's history, they had never seen stones so large and valuable. The young man was surprised because such stones were common in his home world. The stone was clear proof that the huge tree was a real monster. Meanwhile, the assistant guildmaster officially told the people of Hexi City that B-rank adventurer Lexon had defeated the S-rank ancient plant. The townspeople greeted the hero with enthusiastic praise, shouting his name. The hero was pleasantly surprised by the warm reception. The girl said they were thrilled because of the victory's scale, since normally only an elite team of veteran adventurers or a whole army can defeat such a powerful monster. Amazed by the event, the student forgot to congratulate her mentor, since the teacher's victory over such a powerful opponent was truly impressive. Lex thought his victory was a simple matter, but the girl said his perception of reality was clearly wrong, and the problem went far beyond the duel. Marisha said that with those achievements he would get a promotion and no meeting was needed, but Lilara asked her to wait a minute. Lilara asks why they promoted him only to A rank, since he defeated an S rank monster and should be S rank. People started talking and sided with the girl, and one man said it was odd to promote him only to a rank, a remark the substitute guildmaster overheard. Marisha said it was the Adventurers Guild rule that ranks could only be raised one step at a time, and although there were exceptions to many things, there were none for promotion to S rank. The girl asks why there are no exceptions. The woman explains it prevents promoting too many adventurers to S rank. S rank is the guild's highest rank and is only given to those who have performed heroic deeds. It is foolish to promote a hero directly to S rank because it would lower the title's greatness. The crowd began to murmur. One man asked what they meant by lowering the title's greatness. Adventurers do not need greatness. Mersh explains that to advance to the next rank, adventurers need a high success rate in tasks, abilities, and personality, and she thinks everyone already knows this. The adventurers learned about it for the first time, and the main character didn't know either. These requirements aren't a big deal for people with basic decency, but those without it will find promotion difficult. For example, even knowing an adventurer can handle an escort, she won't send him if he might steal the client's belongings. Many high-ranking clients are nobles and wealthy merchants, so those who handle recommendations avoid suggesting risky adventurers to them to prevent losing their trust, and are careful about promoting adventurers to high ranks to protect the client's safety. She was sure Lexon would be promoted to S rank soon, and the young man confirmed she was right. She confirmed this, saying his promotion was delayed because he had achieved too much too quickly. Lex smiled and said he had only beaten an ancient plant, that other high-ranking adventurers could beat him as well, and that S-rank adventurers would likely defeat him with a single touch. The woman asked the boy who the S-rank adventurers were, then sighed heavily, and the protagonist did not answer. Marisha told him to wait a bit until the ancient plant was cut down and auctioned, saying their reward for defeating the wolves and the mutated monster would be worked out, and he should come to the counter later. 604.50 gold coins left Liliello stunned. The girl behind the counter said the reward for killing the mutated monster was 600 gold coins, and for killing 27 wolves, it was 450 gold coins. The heroine looked at the guy. Lex said he had only defeated 10 of them, and the worker replied that part of the reward came from Ivan's son's team and was Lex's son's share, with the payment for defeating the man-eating bears already included. Ivan said the heroes seemed to be busy flirting with Liliella, so he sent them to Lex. Lex thought Ivan should definitely treat him to something next time, since he had not been flirting with the girl. He still had to thank Ivanson and the others for increasing the reward. The staff discussed the cost of buying the mutated monster materials. Lex clarified she had mentioned earlier that the reward was 600 gold coins. She said it was just a reward for winning. The mutated monster's materials are very valuable because they are used for research, and Lulela asked if the reward would be larger. Purchased parts include 1 skin, 1 large blade, 4 small blades, 1 skeleton, and 1 magic stone, and internal organs and meat are included for research, with a subtotal of 1,500 gold coins and a total of 6,150 gold coins. A reward is also given for stopping the demonic beast forest from expanding, and building roads through the forest adds another 420 coins. The total came to 6,570 gold coins. The worker pulled out a huge bag full of coins. Liliello stood stunned. The man thanked the worker. His companion was mesmerized by so many gold coins. People eat meat joyfully. Lex asks if he likes it. The little animal responds with a happy sound. The protagonist thinks this guy's attitude has turned a full 180. Dejected, Lily Ellis sat at the table and did not touch her food. Noticing this, the old man asked if she was okay. Lily Ella took a deep breath. She asked if he thought she was a burden. Surprised, he asked why she suddenly felt that way. She says she is only a burden to him, just a weak creature he instinctively wants to protect. Lex tries to prove her wrong, but she insists she knows herself better than anyone. She realizes she is not fit to travel with him, and staying would only cause him problems. The young man didn't know what to do. He didn't see her that way and couldn't tell her. Lily Ellis said she had already promised him she would repay the debts. He saved her mother and everyone in the village and even rebuilt their hometown. She refuses to break her promise just because it seems impossible. Standing up from her seat, she asks the guy to train her because she wants to be strong enough not to slow him down. To reach this goal, she will accept any training, even if it is hard. Lex thought about what she said about training. The girl said she would do anything. The young man pointed out she had just said she would do anything. Lily Ella stood by her words. Lex understood. The girl began to tremble, unsure of what was happening. The young man believed the girl had decided on her own, so he agreed to train her. The monster did not understand what was happening. In response to her strong determination, he will train her hard. The protagonist is determined to train her to become a first-class adventurer. Memories of his past life returned when he became a master's apprentice to defeat the demon lord. And the training that followed was so harsh he regretted saying it, and today Liliella said she would do anything. He was getting worked up. Liliello asked him to be gentler, sensing danger. Lex said it was a funny joke, told her not to worry, and promised to train her very hard. The protagonist is sure she is already mentally prepared for this. Until then, she had been trying to save the people in her hometown who were suffering from the disease, but meeting Lex-san by chance solved the problem. He saved her life, helped her family, and rebuilt the city. She sees him as her savior. Feeling indebted, she joined him to repay the debt. Lexan accepted her as a friend because he was kind, strong, and noble. To be helpful, she went with him, and on her first adventure, he single-handedly defeated an S-rank monster. Deep down, she knew he was far stronger than her, since he easily defeated the mutated A-rank monster and the trees in the demonic beast forest. Even then, she thought she could still help him, but she did not succeed. The heroes were leaving, and the girl walked with her head down. Liliella set aside her pride and honor and became his student to avoid being a burden. Lex said they must defeat the dragon first. The girl is stunned. She began denying what was happening and asked why he had set the difficulty so high right away. "Don't worry," the boy said. It was only a wild green dragon flying nearby. The girl did not understand. Lex tells her this dragon is not very strong, and the lady says being called a dragon should mean he is strong. The young man tells her to calm down and says dragons are easy to defeat and she only needs to cut his neck, but she objects that it is actually quite difficult. Lex is at a loss with her. Liliella screams that she is the one with the problems. The hero decides to teach her an easy way to defeat the dragon. Moments later, he uses healing on him. The green dragon sprang to life and let out a loud roar. Jumping away, the man said dragons usually fly high, so she must use magic or a thrown weapon to bring one down. The girl is shocked. Lex readied the explosive hammer, and then threw something at the dragon. He continues the instruction, telling her to attack him as he falls. The boy took off. She began hitting the dragon. The girl is shocked that he is beating the dragon. Lex landed and said that after the dragon fell, all that remained was to cut off its neck. And when he asked whether it would be easy, the girl replied that it would not be easy at all. Liliella judged the man hopeless. His preparation was so advanced it could not be called training. At this rate, she'll die during one of his training sessions. Lex said it was the easy way out. The girl grew upset because the man used the word easy the wrong way. She did not need him to teach an easy way to beat someone, but needed him to teach an easy way to beat what a weak person could handle. Lex said he understood the girl. The method he showed implies the same, and Liliella replies that this is the essence of all humanity. Neither her magic nor her combat skill can knock down a dragon. Among B-rank adventurers, she is quite weak. The boy did not believe her and only said she had a good fighting sense. She added that thanks to him she was promoted to B rank, partly because of her sword technique, but mainly because of her high mission completion rate and the material she collected for the guild. To cure Elsa, she searched for an herb, sold most of what she found to the guild, and was given the title of B-rank adventure as a material gathering specialist. She sold all her unneeded herbs, even the expensive ones, to the guild, and they promoted her. That is why, despite being officially a B-rank adventurer, her actual strength is low. Saying that made Lilara sink into depression. An adventurer's rank is not decided by strength alone, and the person before her was very different from a typical B rank. Lex understood everything and decided to help her gain real combat experience so she could get used to fighting. The girl did not understand how he reached that conclusion. The young man put a hand on the girl's shoulder and said not to worry. This time he would teach her his way of fighting properly. After she learns it, he expects her to fight monsters to master it because real battle is the best training. Lilara realized he was about to teach her something. First, they will use everything available today to learn body enhancement magic without casting a spell. The girl said she had a swordsman class. She sets her staff down. Lex says that to master it, she must feel the magic and imagine it flowing through her whole body. The boy activated body enhancement magic, and the girl seemed to understand. She could really use magic just by doing this. He asked if it takes more rigorous training to master it. The man replied, it depends on the magic's nature. She will need to learn a lot to use complex magic. Examples include body enhancement magic and healing magic. Magic without spells suits swordsmen because it can be used intuitively. And as he mentioned before, the adventurers he knows learned it through this teaching method. She can definitely learn. The girl said she would try, and the guy liked her attitude. It's better to try and regret than to regret not trying. A few hours later, the girl tries to exercise. Lex thinks she is trying to spread the magic through her body, but is not succeeding. He offered to use the restoration magic again. She agreed. She failed. Suddenly, the creature jumped onto the man, and the hero was surprised. He asked whether the other really wanted recovery magic used on him too. The man cried out happily when the guy used recovery magic. The creature sprang to life and started rushing back and forth. When Lilara asked what had just happened, Lex realized he had just used body enhancement magic. The monster can transform and use magic. There is no doubt about it. It uses magic to enhance its body. The man clapped and said it was amazing. The monster's face looked menacing. The monster flew toward the main character. Then he bit his finger. Lex said he had his power under control and lightly bit his finger. He is very capable. The monster stood and staggered. The monster lay on the ground. The man asked if he was tired of acting the fool. He began tickling him. Lilara is surprised that even a fluffy ball of fur can learn to do that. The monster stepped up to the girl and rested its paw on her leg. A calm smile crossed his face, and the girl grew angry. She said she would do it, learn today, and prove she could use body enhancement magic. Lex is not sure what happened, but he's glad Lilara seems more motivated. The girl asked the man to use restoration magic on her again. He said one portion was already on the way. Use magic on the girl again and again. After a while, the girl finally succeeded. She felt the magic spread through her body, and the man praised her. She can't yet spread the magical power properly, and it sometimes fails, but once she gets the hang of it, she'll be able to control it. Lex congratulated Lilara. Lilara thanked him and said it was all because of him. Rushing forward, she hugged him and thanked him. The girl said it was amazing she could use magic. Lex said he understood and asked her to step back a bit because she was too close. The girl looked up, realized what the man was saying, and at that moment jumped away from him. She apologized. The hero said it was fine. Using magic for the first time made her clearly overjoyed. The monster felt pleased with himself. Lex suggested moving on to the next stage, and the girl agreed to continue training at the same pace. They stood back to back and took a deep breath. The hero said her next training would be to fight the dragon using body-enhancing magic. Lilara said it was impossible. The man said the point was to fight, not to win. At the edge of the demonic beast forest, Lilara breathes hard. The next moment, she uses eye shot. Ice covered the nearby tree. Lex urged the student to keep up the good work. The girl pictured Lex-san burning the forest as he taught her to use magic without spells. It was effective. She was exhausted. The hero said he could restore non-magical power by transferring mana. She replied that even if she did, he would not be able to restore her mental state. The young man suggested they finish training and grab something tasty at the tavern, and the girl felt relieved. At the reception desk, they were told their reward for destroying 29 trap plants was 2 silver coins, and the girl said it was not enough. The employee said there were many such materials, so the reward was high. Lilara understood. After all the work, getting so much made it unsurprising that ordinary adventurers did not want to stop the forest's expansion. The employee turned to Lex and asked whether it was true that he had stopped the forest from expanding and extended the road into it. Lex confirmed and said he had burned that part of the forest today and widened the road. The employee said they had calculated the cost of the ancient plant, and the elders the guy had destroyed the other day, and would pay him the full cost. The guy thanked the girls and said he had completely forgotten about it. Destroying 20 elder plants earned him 1,800 gold coins. Lilara was shocked by the amount. The young man said it was much more than he expected. Someone explained it was because the wood was valuable. It was Marisha-san. Lex asked whether they really used these plants for wood. The woman confirmed this. Plant monsters can be used for wood, but weak ones give material just like ordinary trees. Elder plants are high-ranking and yield much better wood. Moreche said it was good they brought many, since it is wood and a small amount would not be useful. Use the same material when building a house or a ship. The young man agreed, saying the strength would be the same. Elder plants are rare monsters that live deep in the forest. They are hard to kill because of their tenacity and strength. Unlike normal monsters, each part of them is made of wood, so it is difficult to obtain materials from them. Lex understood why it was so expensive. Mirsha confirmed his suspicion, and because he had brought so many, he received an extra reward, and now the price of rare monster wood is rising. A man needs high-quality monster wood. He will definitely buy the ancient plant up for auction. It will be very valuable. The young man asked why. Knowing all this, she advised putting him up for auction. The woman put her finger to her lips to tell him to stay quiet. It turned out she was the guildmaster's assistant. The Adventurers Guild takes a cut of the auction sales, so they benefit too. Lilara sits in the tavern, eating and drinking, and says the food and drink here are so delicious they cure her fatigue. The guy said the girl learns pretty fast, so she probably has good compatibility with water magic, something Lilara did not know people could have, and he will train her until she can use all 4 basic elements. Lilara said it would take a long time. Lex wanted to settle the reward they had given. Pulling out a bag of coins, he handed it to the girl and said it was her share. The woman was surprised while the monster was eating a piece of bread. There were a lot of them, she said. Lex pointed out she had helped him defeat the elder plants before he faced the ancient. Most of the elder plants were killed by the ancients, not by them. He had simply collected them. She suggested bringing them, and if he had been alone, he would have ignored her. Lilara said they only had the plants because of his magic bag. The man offered to split the reward, but the girl felt embarrassed. Without his help, she could not reach the middle of the forest. They began asking. A few minutes later, Lilara got the full reward for 1 elder plant, and they split the ancient one's reward 8-2. The hero asked if that was enough, and Lilara said it was already a good reward for her. After the meal, the girl stood on the terrace, looked out, and asked what they should do next. Lex did not understand what she meant. She said she was talking about their future plans. They had reached the core of the demonic beast forest and defeated the S-rank monster. Because he had helped her achieve her goals, they had no reason to stay in this city. Lex said he understood the girl. She was right about one thing. They had already done most of what the forest needed. Marisha-san had asked her to stop the forest from spreading and to carve passages inside, but only if it would not be difficult for him. He could stop at any time. Believing the woman had taken care of him, the young man decided he would at least finish the road work. Lex said once the auction for the ancient plant ends and they have the money, they should move to the next city. Hearing about the next city surprised her. Then she brightened and said everything was decided, and now she needs to buy new equipment for the upcoming trip. The hero was surprised she wanted to buy gear. She said she got by with cheap armor and hand-me-downs, and the man did not know she already owned armor. He didn't remember her wearing any armor when they first met. Lilara said she only had one and was just watching the quest, so she didn't wear it. She did not wear them at the party either. The hero felt he'd only seen her wear them once, during the fight with Venom Rex. Lilara glared at the guy. She asked him if he knew armor was expensive even when it wasn't new. It would cost extra to fit the armor for a woman like her, and she planned to go home after testing the new sword. No one expected her to go on an expedition into the forest and fight an S-rank monster. Lex scratched his head and said he didn't know. Lilara said he didn't know, since fighting an S-rank monster is nothing for a normal adventurer. The man felt very sorry. He failed to consider Lilara's thoughts. Her anger was understandable. He offered to replace her armor. She asked whether he was sure about that. He confirmed his intentions. Lilara smiled and said that in that case she accepted the offer, and the man sighed with relief. Lex said he knew a good store nearby and suggested they go there tomorrow. She agreed to go with him because his recommendation would likely be excellent. Lilara says she did not expect to fly just to go shopping. Kneeling beside the huge gates, she wondered where they were, because it was not nearby at all. The hero said they were in the city of Togai. The girl clarified the other man was 5 cities away from Hexi. Lex confirmed this, but they arrived in an instant. Lilara noted he had not said they would get there so quickly when it normally took almost half a day. The monster sat on the girl's hands and trembled. The young woman pointed out that the man even scared him and is always rude. Lex scratched his head and said they just flew by. There is nothing special about it. Lilara is surprised he describes the wyvern attack as a mere flyby. The monster is also outraged. Lex said they were just a flock of wyverns and could not match his flying speed. The girl said the guy really needed a lesson in common sense, and the monster agreed. Whispering, the young man said the girl spoke as if he had none of it. She heard him and replied that she had been talking about it from the start. The fact that normal people cannot fly makes them abnormal. He realized no one in this era flew, so the people of Togai City were surprised to see him flying. Lex realized people in this era could not fly. His conclusion stuns the girl. She said that even 10 years ago they could not do that. That meant people in the country's cities could not fly. The hero decided to remember that. Lilara felt the hero was misunderstanding something again. Entering the city and pushing through the crowded streets, the girl asked where they were headed. Lex said he knows a forge here and he is famous in this city. The girl asked if he was really that famous. It sounded like she had heard of him before. The youth assumed Gordofson's fame had reached even Lillison, who ignored equipment. Lex announced they had finally arrived. He said this was the gun shop they were looking for, and the girl recognized it. The gun shop that kept his gear in working order. A young man stepped into the shop and greeted the owner. Turning, he asked about the person expected to arrive. He spoke as if they were friends. Then he saw the main character and they greeted each other. Gordoff said he heard the man was moving to another city and wondered how he could help this time, and the young man said he had new materials and wanted to borrow Gordoff's workshop. Glad to have the chance to teach him new techniques, the man closed the shop and told the boy to use it as they wished. Lex said he did not have to close the store. Gordoff called it a rare chance he could not miss, and did not want customers to distract him. Lilara stepped in. She said she thought they had come to buy equipment, and asked why the dwarf called him master. The young man realized he had not introduced them yet. He introduces Gordoff, a blacksmith who runs a workshop, then moves on to Lilara-san, a member of his group who is also a fluffy pet. The man repeated what he'd been told about the master's friend. Guessed she was probably very strong and looked quite young, and the hero said she was certain to achieve great success in the future. Lilara asked whether this was really Gordoff from the city of Togai, the famous Gorilov, and Lex confirmed it, while the blacksmith himself said he was merely a novice compared to his master. Gordoff noticed the man's weapon and asked if it was really the master's work. Lex confirmed it, and the blacksmith asked to see it. The hero said he did not mind and asked Lilara if she minded. Lilara also did not mind, and both heroes held out their weapons. Gordoff stared at the weapons in disbelief and could not accept that such technology and its method of forging existed. Smiling, the man thanked the master and said he was glad to have the chance to see the masterpieces. The man told the boy he could use the workshop whenever he wanted. Lex thanked the man. Lilara asked the hero why Gordoff called him a master. She remembers what he said about them going to a good store. He is suddenly asking to overcome the workshop, and she does not understand why. Gordofson's workshop was better than Hexi City's, the boy said, and the girl understood that a good workshop meant a good store. The blacksmith blushed and said the master was flattering him. Lex said everything was fine and he would start immediately. He pulled the required item from his inventory. Gordoff asked if it was real wood, and the man confirmed it, saying it came from an ancient plant. Surprised, the man realized it was the same legendary ancient plant. The young man told Gordoff to strike the material with his hammer. The blacksmith hesitated but agreed, took the hammer, and swung. When he struck the tree, nothing happened. The blacksmith did not know what it was. This wood material does not break and is as strong as iron while remaining lightweight. Lex notes it is harder than iron and would make excellent, light, and strong armor. Gordoff could not imagine such a material and trembled with delight.